time is now 6 o'clock, and the following board members are in attendance: Rhonda Timish, Catherine Sells, Christy Hassett, Allison Lasan, Tracy Miller, Jenny Prosnick, and Angie Cox. And I've asked Ms. Timish to please lead us in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time together as a board, and I just pray specifically for our time, for the things that we have to discuss. Lord, that you would give us wisdom, you'd give us discernment, and that we would walk away with good questions, and that we would have the questions we have answered. And we just thank you for the opportunity to continue to advocate for our teachers and students in our community. We just pray a special measure of blessing for all of our teachers and students tonight as they are beginning a new week. And we just also pray for those that are hurt, Lord, or that need something, that you would just give them a touch of blessing in their life. And we lift all this up to you. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Dr. Rapp, our four corners.
Yes, so our I statement this evening is under the cornerstone of student experience. It says, I seek and encourage talent development. And just real quickly tonight, I want to have an opportunity to mention about our Leadership Matters group that we have formed. It's a new group that we formed for assistant principals who are aspiring to be principals within the next 1 to 2 years. And so we've selected 16 participants for that group. It's a collaborative effort between the assistant chiefs and Dr. Coburn and Shauna Miller, Dr. Miller from Professional Learning. And we start our 4 lunch and learns with them. We start our first lunch and learn this month. So we're excited about that and happy to share more as the group learning progresses.
And Dr. Rapp, Ms. Timish and I were talking earlier today. I mean, it's a selected group. It's not. Will you talk just a little bit about that?
So the process in order to be selected for this group, what they had to do is fill out an application. They responded to a couple of written prompts on their application, as well as they had to submit a video interview after that, much like our future candidates do right now for the principalship and future people who want to be assistant principals. And so we looked through every single video interview. We looked through every written response in selecting the 16 participants that were identified to be a part of the group.
Thank you, Dr. Rapp. Dr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cox and board. We first tonight have TASB here, and we're very appreciative that you're here. You know, if you remember, I think it was actually last spring we had talked about the TASB compensation model, and certainly there's been a changeover in trustees since that time, and we just felt it would be important for the board to understand the model, and so we appreciate. And Buddy, I don't know if you have anything else you want to say.
No, I'm just excited to have Ann Patton here tonight to walk through this with us. Ann is a noted expert from TASB, works with many districts across the state, and whenever we have a question, we often talk to Ann about that. So I'm excited that she's here as well.
Well, thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I have kind of a long relationship with Lewisville ISD. I have family that lives in Lewisville, so I'm in and out of town a lot. You don't know it, but I'm in and out of town a lot. So I am thrilled. I'm the managing compensation consultant at the School Board Association. I've been with TASB for 19 years. I work primarily with the large urban school districts in the state. I travel all over the place. Prior to coming to TASB, I worked for the city of Austin, and then I worked for Seton Healthcare. So I have a mix of public and private sector experience. I also have a degree in speech therapy, so I also have a connection to the schools. So I have this varied, I guess you would say varied experience factor. I'm going to walk through a little bit. Okay, is it up? Oh, there we go. We're going to first talk about the pay system objectives. Kind of go do an overview about what pay systems are, how we developed this pay system. I was the consultant that did the study way back in, I believe it was 11, 12. Me and, well, there were several of us involved. You're a big school district, so I can try to dredge up memories from that. But first we want to be able to create a pay system that we can recruit new employees so you can provide competitive entry rates. We also want to create a system that provides competitive pay for people you want to recruit, experienced people that you want to recruit to the district. Dallas-Fort Worth is a very competitive area. You have school districts right around you that are, look up to you and want to compete, that are trying to compete for talent with you. So we want to make sure we keep you up to date. We want to make sure that we pay for the value of the job, preventing overpayment or underpayment for the value of the job. We also want to make sure that we create a system that retains employees by providing pay increases on a regular basis. This system the system distributes the pay increases so that you as individuals or you as a board don't have to be picking and choosing who gets pay increases and who doesn't. The system actually distributes the pay increases. The controlling cost piece is your piece. This system allows you as the board to control who gets increases and who doesn't. I need to click my clicker. So you are the one that says, okay, we have money for a 3% general pay increase, then the system distributes the increases. If you say, no, this is not a good year, we only got 2%, or yay, we have a bonus, it's Christmas in July, we've got 5%, you control that. So that's where the control is for you. Then the system actually distributes the increases to the individuals. We've created for you a market, and school districts all over the state of Texas, a market-based pay strategy. This means that these pay ranges are intentionally set based on the market rates and the district goals. So if, for example, if you as a board told me that you wanted Lewisville ISD to be the highest paying school district in the state of Texas, no one's ever told me that, by the way, but just in case, then we could build these pay structures way above market. We could put them at the 75th percentile. We could put them at the 80th percentile. But it depends on what your goals. Most school districts throughout the state want to pay around the 50th percentile. They want to keep current. They want to keep it right about the median. But if you wanted to pay more, we would build a very high pay system for you. It just costs more money. That's the only issue. Then, after we set the pay range midpoint in some relationship to what the market is, we set the minimum and maximum on top of that. So that's where the ranges come from. And back in that goal, we're providing competitive pay ranges. We want to make sure that those entry rates are competitive and that these maximums are not too narrow so we don't max people out too quickly. We want to make sure that you compete for the best and the brightest with as much flexibility as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, we have pay grades, jobs are grouped together, and I'll show you the factors based on the market value for the jobs within each pay grade. And we'll talk about the market in just a minute, about how you decide the market and what market we've used in the past. And then we set the minimums and maximums on top of that. So based on what the pay grade what the jobs are in each pay grade is where we decide what is the middle of that pay range going to be. And then in the hierarchy is usually, the way it works is, the jobs with the lowest market or lower market values are at one pay grade, and then they graduate up based on responsibility level and what the market value is for the job. But there is not a market for every job. I wish there were. It would make my life so much easier, but it does not exist. We survey, in case you don't know, we survey for 140 different positions. We survey every school district in the state of Texas. We have about we better have about a 70% response rate, but even there still is not a market value for every single job. So there's other what we call compensable factors that we look at to slot jobs into these pay grades, and these factors were actually created back in the 60s under the Equal Pay Act. I'd love to tell you that TASB thought this up and we made it up all by our lonesome selves. We did not. This is common compensation practice. You look at the knowledge required for the job, which is education level, experience, expertise. You'll look at the level of decision making, how they communicate, responsibility, financial budget responsibilities, supervisory responsibility. How many people do you supervise? If you supervise at all, most jobs are single incumbent, individual contributors. And then working conditions. Even in school districts, there are working conditions. I call them angels walking on this earth that are changing diapers, exposed to biofluids, that are plumbers. They are down in the drains of the school district. They are handling hot wires. So those are jobs that would be impacted by environmental working conditions. So jobs are slotted and classified into these pay grades based on the market value of the job, and If we don't have market value for the job, we look at these compensable factors and slot them in. And pay ranges need to be maintained. Dallas-Fort Worth is a very dynamic market. I mean, the market's moving all the time, and you can see it. I mean, teacher pay alone, you can see it's just going up and up and up and up and up. It does for other jobs too. Technology alone, we used to have to survey. I mean, there were survey sources that used to survey twice a year because the tech market was moving so fast. It's slow. We don't have to do that now, but there were times when it was just too hot to handle. So you have to have a system that is maintained and managed. And so what we recommend is that you actually maintain and shift these schedules up a little bit, but in order to keep up with the moving market. It makes it flexible and makes it dynamic. These systems were never designed to just create a system, leave it there for 5 years, and don't ever touch it. If that happened, you would be left in the dirt because everybody else is moving. And if you didn't move yours, we recommend, and we'll go over this a little bit more in a minute, that you move these salary schedules about half of what the general pay increase is. That way people's pay actually moves from the minimum to the maximum over a period of time. And I have a slide that will illustrate that in a minute. Okay, this is hard to read, and I do apologize, but these are the market. We're going to shift a little bit and look at the districts that we have been including in your market. These are local Dallas-Fort Worth area districts, and they're pretty much your nearest and dearest around you. They're, Allen and Arlington and Carrollton Farmers Branch and Dallas and Denton, Richardson, Plano, Frisco. These are who you compete for talent with. They are geographically near to you, and you compete for talent directly with them. We are the source. This is where our primary source of getting academic market data. There are other school districts in the state of Texas that are also large and growing that we could also look at if you wanted to. Some of them are you can see there's the Austin area. Of course, Austin ISD is very large. Cypress Fairbanks, Fort Bend, these are all large suburban school districts. Fort Bend is in Houston. Fort Bend, Cypress Fairbanks are in Houston. Katy is in Houston. Klein is in Houston. Leander is in the central Texas area outside Austin. Northeast and North Side are in San Antonio. You can see they're very large districts. Pasadena is also in Houston. And then Round Rock is in the central Texas area. There are others, but you're not limited, but there are others that we could also consider. But you primarily compete, you have a deep applicant pool here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So your administration and the past administrations have never really asked us in the past to go look at some of these other districts, but I wanted you to know that we have the data for them if you wanted to look at it. I will tell you, you'll see some data in just a minute, that Houston and Dallas areas tend to compete very favorably with each other. I mean, don't let Dallas do something that Houston's not going to do. I'm a native Texan. I get this. Austin does not compare as favorably. So Austin salaries have been suppressed for a long time. So you'll see evidence of this. But we survey for 140 different jobs. That's about as long as we can make it, and people will still complete it, because you get longer than that and then people just go, can't deal with it. So we purchase third-party salary surveys. So we purchase these salary survey sources are very expensive. Data costs a lot, but this is how we get private sector information. I cannot go, I live in Round Rock. I could not call Dell and ask them what they paid their techs. After they quit laughing at me, they'd hang up. Private sector are not subject to open records. They don't have to tell you what they're going to pay, and they won't. But they will participate in third-party salary surveys who can keep their data confidential. So that's how I can get information on jobs that either we do survey for and I can combine it, or we don't survey for and I can get it. So, for example, we survey for an accountant. That would be a mid-level accountant. But the survey sources, I can get a senior-level accountant, I can get an entry-level accountant. Tech jobs, we survey for probably maybe 15 different tech jobs. I can get a lot more. I can get 20 to 30 tech jobs on various levels from the private sector sources. So these surveys are very, very valuable for us. This is how I know what the private sector's paying. I'm not going to know any other way. Questions about the market? Please stop me. Like I said, they're purchased, that we purchase them. This is one of our main businesses. They report aggregate data from private and public sector employers, so they'll give me 10, 20, 50, 75th, 100 percentiles, but I'm not going to know what, they don't list what each company makes, because that wouldn't be confidential. And then surveys provide job surveys that we don't survey, and I'm looking at additional levels and other specialized, like videographers and some other specialized positions that we just, don't have the capacity to survey for that many. Any more questions about the market sources or why we use them? I have 20 minutes, so that's why I'm racing through this. We do a whole 7-hour class on compensation, so you're getting a Reader's Digest version. So let's shift a little bit to look at some of your teacher demographics. I asked Dr. Bonner and Tim Chafin to provide me some data for your 2018-19 information. So one of the things I always look at is to see what kind of teachers, what level of experienced teachers are you recruiting. So in this particular situation, you have that blue block is a little bit larger, so about 36% of your teachers are brand new baby teachers right out of school. But you have a nice balance of experienced teachers from 5 years all the way up to 16 plus years. Now, teachers tend to not jump ship way late in their careers, but you've been able to recruit. I mean, this is a pretty nice balance, particularly for a district your size that's so dynamic. I've seen, a fast-growing district would look quite different than this. Someone that can't build schools fast enough, or, that blue block would be a whole lot bigger. A district that is, not a rural district, a little tiny rural district, that little blue block would be a whole lot smaller. But this is a nice balance. So you've been able to recruit teachers at a variety of different years of experience. And this is 2018-19 information. This is a histogram of the teacher experience in your district right now. We have plotted the number of teachers you have in each year of experience. The blue bar is the median experience, so that means that half of your teachers have 7 years or less of experience, and the other half have 7 years or more of experience. I just, as an information, and this is for 3,897 teachers that you all gave me. I looked back at 2011 and 12, and back then the median was 10 years. So your teacher population has tended to get a little bit younger. The median experience for the state runs around 11 years, 11, 12. And then just as a note, those with 25 years or more of experience, you have 384 that have 25 years or more of experience. That's roughly 10%. So just for a planning information, that allows you to know, gee, we've got 10% of our teachers that may be thinking about retiring. I mean, they may stay forever, but TRS tells us that teachers tend to retire around 30, 31 years, just on average. So nice to know, oh gosh, we've got to keep our salary schedules up because we know 10% of our teachers may be retiring. And then I pulled some market information just to show you. This is our salary data from 2017-18. Our 18-19 data is not ready yet, so it will be ready. I won't be able to extract from our database until after Thanksgiving. So this is last year's. So this is at your teacher salary schedule, hiring schedule at every 5-year increment. Looking at the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I mean, you're ahead. The local market, which is the local market median, you're sitting, looks really good. You're sitting kind of on top, just above, slightly up at or above all this median of the school districts in the other school districts. This does not mean you're the highest, but it does mean that you are above the median. And then looking in Houston, the non-school, the non-local districts, they have that median that has a little dip around 5 years. And sometimes those dips can happen when everybody's so concentrated on getting that starting salary up that they have not been conscientious sometimes to keep it up all the way through the salary schedule. And that's when I've seen that. But you guys have done a great job. this is all good. This is all good news tonight. For data hounds like me, I know this violates the rules on every PowerPoint slide, but I thought maybe you would like to see how some of the other school districts pan out. As you can see, this is sorted by highest starting salary to lowest starting salary. HEB is the highest, and they actually are the highest. Last year were highest in the state, and they've been that way for a while. The solid line going across is your starting salary, so you're paying above the 75th percentile at starting salary. And if you look at the bottom, you can see your comparison to the median. You're exceeding the median at all levels. We survey up to 20 years. The shadow, Plano ISD does not report 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They have a pay range for their teachers, and they did that several years ago. They do not have a step plan for their teachers at all. And then Arlington ISD is another, those salaries are their actual averages. They also have a pay range for their teachers. Questions? Okay. The teacher market for the non-DFW, this is just kind of interesting to see. You are still paying about relationship-wise above the 75th percentile for those non-DFW districts. One thing that I wanted to bring your attention to, if you look at those bottom three, which is, Austin, Leander, and Round Rock, that's a representative of how salaries are suppressed in Central Texas. They don't have to pay that high, and they just don't. My daughter teaches here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and honestly, I said, she was wanting to come home. I was going like, you're going to have to take a pay cut if you come home. So she's still here teaching in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Other pay groups that we looked at, your administrators, the number of benchmarks is the number of jobs we were actually able to match to the market. Administrators are department directors and above primarily. Overall, of course, there's going to be some highs and some lows, but overall, you're right at the market. You're within a couple of percentage points all the way across. It doesn't get any closer than this. Campus leadership would be your principals and assistant principals. Professionals include diagnosticians, counselors, speech paths, OTs, PTs, accountants, and then technology. We built a separate structure for them several years ago, and they are, and at 97%, that is an improvement. We used for that study a lot of non-school markets so that we could get some of those salaries up. But you're still within 3 percentage points. I mean, that's statistically not enough. You're right at the market all the way across. So I don't always get to brag on boards, but I do get to brag on one tonight. You've done a great job of managing this. Other pay groups would be your non-exempt workers, which is clericals and paraprofessionals, which is secretaries, classroom aides, library aides, payroll, accounting clerks. You are at the DFW market and slightly above the non-DFW market. Your instructional support, which would be your, your aides are instructional support. Your paraprofessionals would include other non-clerical, non-exempt jobs. Your instructional support are all your aides, and you're running about 10% above market. That's fantastic. Like I said, these are the angels walking on this earth. So we want to make sure that they tend to also have a pretty high turnover rate. So we want to keep those. And I think strategically years ago we tried to keep those salaries up a little bit or slightly above market. And then auxiliary would include the skilled and non-skilled trades. Like I said, this is all good news. It's all good. The pay increase guidelines that were developed is that pay increases are calculated as a percentage of the midpoint. This means that everybody in the same pay grade gets the same dollar amount. So if we were all in pay grade 3 and 3% of the midpoint is $1 an hour, all of us would get $1 an hour. This is not a performance pay system, and this is probably one of my most common questions. I don't know your backgrounds necessarily, but frequently private boards are made up of those who work in the private sector. The private sector is about probably 85%, if not more, and public sector as well have performance pay systems. That means the highest performing people get the bigger raises. So the whole tenure thing kind of goes out the window a little bit because those systems are designed to move the high performers at or above market faster. That is not what this is. You don't have a performance pay system here. Now, are there school districts in Texas that have them? Yes. Not very many. And so if you want resources on that, that is a whole different conversation. If you want resources, then we can, have some resources for you. It is not something that you can design and say, oh, we'll do performance pay, next semester. It doesn't work that way. In one of my previous employers, we designed a performance pay system. It took us 2 years to develop it. We trained every manager. We had 10,000 employees, trained every manager. The first time it went out, how do you think we did? How do you think our employee population did? We were all outstanding. Something like 90% of the employee population was outstanding, and the boss said, there is no way. Do it again. So 10,000 employee evaluations went back out, and we had to get much more realistic scores. They can be difficult to implement, but is it impossible? No. What we found with school districts sometimes, though, they can be pricey, and so school districts sometimes run out of funds. And then we make sure that all employees should be paid at least the minimum of the assigned pay grade. We design those pay minimums so that they're competitive with market, and that we want to make sure that they are at least at the minimum of the pay grade. So when we do a pay system, if you would go back and look at the old study, we would have adjusted your pay ranges, we would have given everybody their general pay increase, and then if that was not enough to get them above the minimum, we gave them an additional bump. This is just an illustration of how the adjusted structures and how the pay increases interchange with each other. This is one pay grade that is adjusted about 1.5% every year, and then the employee's pay is 3% of the midpoint. So their pay is actually moving faster through the range. So it actually, what we call, progresses from the minimum to the maximum over a period of time. Because remember, the goal, we want market competitive pay. So we want people to get moved to that pay range. If you adjust the structures at the same amount you do a pay increase, then that little star stays at exactly the same place all the way up. And then you get employees that, well, how am I ever going to get to market? How am I ever going to get to the midpoint? And they're right. They won't. If you keep your pay ranges exactly the way they are and you give people pay increases, then that little star hits that maximum a whole lot faster. And your entry rates are too low because the market's moving, but you're not. So this way, people's pay actually moves through the pay grade from a minimum to the maximum over a period of time. Now, in a dynamic market, I have districts I go to every year. In a dynamic market, we look at these things every single year to make sure that these pay rank, not only the pay where we want it to be, but the pay grades are where we want them to be as well. And that way, if we run into something that, like, oh my gosh, we got behind here, we can fix it then and not have to wait years later and fix it when it costs too much money. Why use the midpoint? And I know this is a very common question because it is not done in the private sector. I guess it could be, but as far as I know, it's not. And even at the city, we did not do this. But we had performance pay at the city. What this does is it actually allows people whose pay is below market to move towards that target a little faster. So this blue line going across is the midpoints that are being adjusted every year like we recommend. If you do a percentage of pay, if you do a percentage of midpoint, that person's pay hits the midpoint at about 9 years. If you do a percentage of midpoint, it doesn't hit, percentage of pay, did I get that backwards? If you do a percentage of pay, it doesn't hit that midpoint until 12 years. So people's pay languishes kind of at the bottom about 3 years longer. If you do also a percentage of pay, what happens over years, now you could, mix it up a little bit, and I've seen the cost is relatively the same. what happens over time is people at the top of the pay grade, they get great big pay increases, and that little star goes up, and all those stars hit that top really fast. These people at the bottom of the pay grade who are below market, their pay languishes at the bottom of that pay grade an additional 3 years. So over time, pay polarizes on each side of that target, and that's the exact opposite of what we want to happen. We want pay to be market. We want to pay competitively to the market for your staff, recognizing that people with a lot of experience, people with more experience, people with higher skills, people you really need can be paid above market under certain circumstances. People at the beginning of their career, they're brand new into their career, they're going to be paid below market. We want a mechanism so that we get people's pay to the market as quickly as we can while still rewarding people who have been long-term employees. And we don't want pay polarized on each side of that target. We want pay clustered around the market. So that's why we recommend using the midpoint. And that's why but it is very different than a private sector model that is using a percentage of pay. Did I make it in 20 minutes? Almost?
You did pretty good.
Did pretty good. There's a lot to go through. So questions? Questions.
Thank you, Ann. So we kind of go on a round table is how we kind of do our questions. So
Okay.
Ms. Prosnick will be first if she has
Okay.
any.
Didn't know I was going to be first. Because I was first last time. You're only looking at pay, you're not looking at stipends at all when you were looking at our
Well,
data.
if we do a stipend survey as well. I was asked to address pay and pay systems as well.
So
But
we could get that.
for tonight, yes. So yes, we actually conduct a stipend survey. We survey about, I think we're up to 70 stipends of, athletics, academics, the arts. Stipends are tricky. Some districts pay days and some people don't. And, we've got to calculate a total value for each stipend, and then we recommend changes on that. We do leadership stipends. We do master's degrees, math, science, foreign language, bilingual. So that is a study that we can do for you and compare to whatever school districts you want to look at. Sometimes the athletic stipends you use maybe a slightly different market depending on your athletic program here. But around here, you're probably going to use this considerably these same school districts.
And then, what I remember from my early TASB training on budgets was that you can either pay teachers high on the front end or you can pay them high on the back end for experience.
Well,
I remember the chart.
I mean,
very well.
I actually recommend, and I'm pretty proud of the chart that you have, which pays teachers slightly above at all years of experience. You want to be able to compete with not everybody wants to grab only the brand new baby teachers. I think when you want to recruit people, a lot of districts have said, if we could get someone with 5 years, that'd be awesome. I think strategically what you've done is keep all the levels high and not just pick one over the other. And when we look at these, I look at every 5-year increment and say, what do we need to do? Oops, we're dipping below at 5 years, and so we'll need to build in some equity there to make sure they're okay. Or, gee, your teachers at 20 years are sagging. We need to build in some equity there. And I've done it all kinds of ways, just depending on what you, as the direction you as the board tell us to do, as well as what teachers, how competitive do we want to be? I've had to say we want to be at least 5% above at every 5-year increment. We can do that. So it depends on what your philosophy is. I don't know that it's an either or. I don't know that it's either it's a brand new teacher or it's a senior teacher. I don't look at it.
Well, a brand
that
new
way.
teacher's less expensive.
Well, of course, but you've got. But I don't know that strategically I would build a structure to make it more advantageous one way or the other. Like I said, I recommend that we build a structure so that all levels of teacher are competitively paid.
Okay.
Ms. Hassett,
Are we just asking one question?
that's all your question.
Okay. Wanted to ask, first of all, you said that we could get the resources of the different districts that had performance
I'll have to, yeah, I've got one of the other consultants, that's kind of her pet project, is to look at performance-based systems, and so there are some examples, and she does talks all over the state about this, so I can get that and have it sent back to you about districts who have, some of them we'll send you the program, some of them have lost some of the funding for it, but the basic premise of how they're designed would be a resource for you.
And do you have the Dallas pay structure?
I do.
Okay. Has TASB evaluated that in particular? Do you have the TASB analysis? Could you send that to us?
I will send you what we have.
Okay. That's,
Because, like I said, one of the other consultants, I mean, I have worked with Dallas ISD, but it's been several years. One of my co-consultants has all the inside scoop on that. So
that would be lovely if you could send all that information.
I do. I will tell you that there's one of our friends in Dallas ISD, they're like inundated with requests
Right.
about that plan.
Right now, right before the legislative session.
They are
because
just
this is what they're-
because of what's been publicly said. You know, I mean, they're getting calls from all
That's
over
why
the
I'm very
country.
interested in looking at what they're recommending before session. So if you could provide that information, that'd be great. The rest are for Dr. Bonner, really, I think. Are all of our employees at or above minimum of their pay grade?
No, ma'am, as the chart indicated, the chart that Ann provided to you is on keynote positions. Not all of our positions are at 101%. But I appreciate you asking that, because I would like to say that Ann's very favorable view of that is based on a couple of things. One, obviously the board has been giving pay raises of 2 or 3% for the past several years. But two, at Dr. Rogers' instruction, Mr. Chafin in the back has done an excellent job at seeing what other districts are paying, so that we can be in the market there, because our effort is to be at exactly what Ann mentioned, at 101% of the median market. And the data bears that out, except for a few positions.
Do we have a system in place to help those positions? Is it just individuals that are not meeting them in, or is it the positions themselves that are not meeting them in?
We measure it by the position, not the individual, because the people may populate the pay schedule
Okay.
at various places. In the spring, we look at those positions internally, and we also discuss those at the leadership team level as we're looking at setting pay recommendations to the board for later in the spring/summer.
So if you look at, is it okay if I interrupt for a minute?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you were to look at a market analysis that we did, or that Tim has access, all of our stuff is online, and Dr. Bonner and Tim, they have access to it. So if you were to just look at a list of, say, we'll look at the instructional aides. I'm going to know the median of all those different positions, and I'm going to know whether, how they compare to market. Some are going to be higher, some are going to be lower. In an individual situation where you have like maybe one director of transportation or one director of special ed, as an example, you'll see variances. Some are going to be high. If they've been in the job forever, they're going to be above market. They've been with you, and you have a lot of long-term employees. You have a lot of people with work that are very dedicated here. So, there's going to be some that are high because they've been here a long time. You're going to have new employees that are new in their profession. They're going to be below market. I tend to look at trends, and if there's some outliers, then I would ask about it, like, what's the matter? I would look at, I also pay a lot of attention to principals. It's like, are your principals, they're your first line leaders, So if you were just to look at an individual list of jobs, you would be able to see variances up and down. What I reported tonight was the average within each of those pay groups. I would bet, though, that you probably are pretty conscientious about not having anybody below the minimum of their pay grade.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so your folks are, because I know you guys, and so you guys are very conscientious about keeping those pay grades aligned. So I would doubt that anyone would be too low below that.
Also, for the pay structure, how often do we adjust our pay structure? Are we at that 1.5%? Do we adjust it every year?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. We adjusted the 1/2 of the percentage increase that the board
1/2?
approves.
Not 1.5? 1/2?
It's 1.5 on the slide because that assumes a 3% increase.
Got it.
We increase it 1/2 of the
Of the-
percentage increase.
okay,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry.
In other words, 1% this past
I
year.
cut you off.
And as Ann indicated, that keeps the system fluid and dynamic rather than static. If you leave it static, people are going to fall off the end of it, right?
And Dr. Bonner, though, I mean, we haven't always done that. I mean, we've tried to, but I mean, I think it's accurate to say we have not always done
That's exactly correct. We've done it the past 4 years, but we did not initiate the system in that fashion.
All right. When the information goes out on the other districts doing pay for performance, that'll be copied to the whole board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then, no, I just wanted to, I'm also interested because I do think that I have heard other districts are running out of money on that. So you
Yeah, some of these districts, some of these initiatives have been funded by grant money or federal money, and then when that runs out, or if that's not re-awarded, then, you know, but what I'll get with my colleague, and she's got this great, concise PowerPoint that she likes to do, so I may just, if that would be all right, just to give you some basic information.
And Ms. Timish, there's no doubt that while some of those systems are being touted by some of our legislators or commissioner of education or whatever, I mean, even Superintendent Hinojosa has made it clear the system that Dallas has created is not sustainable, and that's the problem. They started with grants, but then the grants run out. How do you keep paying for it?
Right. My concern would be starting something that we can't sustain. I think we need to be very, specific, and this is probably more for maybe Dr. Rogers or Dr. Bonner, that our years of experience is 7 years compared to a statewide average of 11. Do you have the history of the averages to comparable districts around us? Is 7 something for us to be concerned about being that low compared to others? Is that normal average? How do we look at compared to other districts?
I think that's a great question. I was sort of pleased to see the mix, you know, the pie graph, and then because, you know, we did change that several years ago. You know, I think we probably are on the 7 a little below the average because for 2 or 3 years in a row, I don't remember what, 3, 4 years ago or longer, we did the resignation incentive, and certainly we had a lot of experienced people that took that resignation incentive, and so I think that certainly has led to that 7 versus 9 or 10. So,
I just didn't know for a district our size if there was like a sweet spot for.
you know, as a former campus principal, I think really the mix and the pie graph is really what I've always felt was important as a campus leader. Is I need some fresh blood as far as new ideas, young, but I also need a good mix of experience. So you want those 5 to 10, 15 year, and then you want those 20, 25 year. I mean, so you really want to, I mean, in a perfect world, I always thought if I could have a third, and a third, I could change the world.
Ms. Timish, also, the PEEM standard report and the TAPR report provide the data that underpins that. And so if there's some districts of particular interest, we can pull those to kind of see where the average years of experience lays for instructional staff.
And I think for me, it would be less necessarily comparing us to other district, but more of just making sure that we're in just a sweet spot across our district with just maintaining that balance, like you said, of that, you know, that third, and that third.
A lot of them have already been taken, but I was stuck on this histogram too because just.
Do you want me to go back to that?
Yeah,
It's slide 16.
yeah, it's that slide 16. Just wanted to know if where we were was a result of, or where you see districts that are in that 7-year median. If that's growth cycle or age of district, I'd like to see something in comparison, or does it really not matter?
What? I mean, I would work with some of the districts in this area. I mean, we don't collect this data on a statewide basis, and so I don't know that. I mean, I anecdotally know because I work with a lot of the districts in this area. But that would just be, that wouldn't really be valid information. That would just be kind of I can try to see. But I don't know that it's, I think when you told me that, when you just mentioned that you did a resignation incentive several years ago, that definitely explains why the tenure went down from, or the experience went down from 10 to 7. That would do it.
And I think, Dr. Bonner, we did it for, was it 3 years or 2 years?
My memory is fading, Dr. Rogers.
I know you weren't in HR at that time.
No, actually, I was leaving the first go-round, and I think we did it a year after I left. I think we did it 3 or 4 years.
I think we did it for at least 3 years.
Yeah, I think
See,
that's right.
that would be a very good reason why that, since 2011, that it went down.
Well, you can track it back to superintendent, and that'll give you the dates, because that's
My-
when it was aligned.
My colleague in the audience is telling me we did it 3 years.
3
Yeah.
years. Okay.
And then that pie graph, is that sustainable over a long term, that hire? And that one? Or, wait, yeah,
Yeah, this is the new hire. This is just new hires.
yeah. Is that sustainable without,
Well, yes, as long as you keep, like I said, you're paying all these levels above market, so this makes perfect sense, because your pay is very competitive. Now, keep in mind, pay is not the only reason why people will come to work here. This is a very attractive community. You have great schools, you have a great reputation, so there's a lot of reasons why people go to work where they work.
and I
But
guess I'm more
you've been able to take pay off the table.
right. And that reminds me, Dr. Bonner, what is the average for new hires each year? Is 280, is that range? Is that an
Average for
accurate
new
range
hires.
And number
each
of-
year? The
of
number of new hires each
New
year?
teachers.
Oh,
They
gosh,
showed
we hired
285 for the last year.
Last year, but
Yeah, yeah.
250, 300, somewhere in there.
304.
304
It's
that we can.
decreased a little bit.
right. And I think I'm not so concerned about the new ones, is that even that more experienced teacher, I think being able to bring those into the district is probably a little bit harder sometimes. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I guess it would depend on their circumstances, but, I think that for me, maybe the focus has been on just those new hires, those college graduates, making sure we're at those job fairs and things like that. And I think that maybe this would be a reflection on maybe we need to rethink, is there other ways to recruit those more experienced? Because I'm not sure that those necessarily are going to be standing in line with the new college graduate to talk with us. And so I know we've done some incentives for recommendations. And so just in reflection, maybe I would like to know those that we paid out, were those experienced teachers, and maybe see how we could just continue that. 'Cause for me, I think that would be the harder than those new hires.
And I think, Ms. Sells, when I looked at the chart, I actually saw it as a third, and I know there's another third that consists of
Right.
those 6 to 16 plus, and I saw it as being a third, and felt pretty good about it. I think, as Ann says, more experienced teachers are less likely to leave their district that they're vested in, and so I was
like
actually
this.
excited
Yes,
about it.
and I do like this.
I was too.
I would just be concerned
Yeah.
if the blue went to
Oh, yeah.
2/3, is what I'm saying, because I think that it's, in some ways, especially for our district, and we're being proactive in, or I hope we are, in hiring those former students of ours. And so I would think at some time your pool for a new hire with no experience is sometimes greater than those with.
And
I
I
think it's-
do want to just reiterate, we have told principals, and this wasn't, we have told principals to hire the best candidate.
Yeah.
And if that's a, ultra experienced person, then that's who we're gonna hire. So we don't want to.
Can I follow up just real quickly, Ms. Sells? We have done some some things on the recruiting piece, as you mentioned, the referral incentives. We've also done a direct mail piece to district employees for bilingual, regardless of experience. And so we pursue others pretty aggressively in a variety of ways. But no doubt, brand new teachers are a large pool, as evidenced by the information up top.
Mr. Miller?
Great presentation, thank you. So I would, I think to Christy and Cronda's point, I'd like to amend the request. For me, I mean, it's good edification what Dallas is doing, but it's irrelevant for LISD, and I'll tell you why. When I look at the numbers that we have as it relates to what's happening to our employee benefits and our property taxes, and then I look at the slide that you've got 2 slides later, a teacher starts just under $53,000, and in 5 years they're making probably $54,500, right? So the salary goes up over 5 years, a couple $1,000. That absolutely does not cover cost of living, it does not cover benefits, and it does not cover the increase in their property taxes. So it's a different problem than other ISDs like a Dallas would have. But I would be very interested in what are all the creative options, right? Other than the governor and the lieutenant governor saying they're going to give everybody $10,000, which we know is not true. But if you could provide just the wildest, craziest ideas, if you don't mind. I do think it is an interesting. The graphic here got my attention because, I mean, if you look at this over a 10-year period, teachers making just over $56,000. So if they start at 52, making 56, it's $4,000.
Can I jump in real quick? I'm so sorry. Remember that this is a fixed point in time. So this is year 0 at 52.9, which is last year's data. And the same year on the 10-year, it's 56,240. But remember that 10-year teacher started 10 years ago when the entry salary was much lower. Does that make sense? So if you take the year 0 salary on this year, 53,750, and you do a 2% raise for 5 years, you're going to be right at 59. So still not high enough,
right?
But better than the fixed point in time for sure.
And thank you for that. And I get that there's this principle of it takes more to get people than to keep people. But even if you looked at it in our cabinet level, right? If we did that, say, well, Dr. So-and-so was here 15 years ago, and they're not necessarily going to be at the same level as the new doctor that came in. I mean, we don't do it that way, right? And so I get that I think that's just a fundamental problem in the system, and coming from the private sector, right? So, so I just think that's something we've got to be aware of, right? Every time we decide to save a little money for our teachers, 0.5% a raise or whatever, we are putting them in a very difficult position. You've got to really want to work in LISD, because the fact is that the property tax base in Denton County, with no tax increase on our current rate, costs our employees every year. It doesn't, even a raise doesn't really benefit them. I want to make sure I understand the midpoint. When we say we approve a 2% raise or 3% raise, if a person's making $50,000, that's a 1.03 times 1.03, and that's what their new salary is.
If 50,000 is the midpoint, yes, sir.
If 50,000 midpoint.
Correct.
So the person has to be making the midpoint to get the 3%. If they're making, I know our numbers are higher, if they're making 48,000, they're not getting 3%, they're getting more actually.
Correct. Yes. If the range is 48,000 is the minimum, 50 is the mid, and 52 is the max, and you're paying 3% on the midpoint, 50,000 gets 3%. Whatever that dollar value is, 48,000 gets, and 52,000 gets.
Right. So for another day, does that really seem fair? Right?
Well,
so
at the end of the day,
teacher
what
and-
happens is that everybody doing the same job gets the same dollar amount.
Oh, so that's to my next point then. Should we be paying the same, should we be paying based on tenure? Forget stipends for a second. Or should we be paying on the job? So a teacher that proctors a high school EOC is a different job, math, science, whatever, than some other positions, right? And so I would assume that maybe you guys are looking at some of this. Dr. Moses has his theories on this, so maybe you guys have some ideas around it where what we need to be doing is thinking about how are we able to compensate for teachers that are it's really tougher positions. And to be clear, because this is on the record and video, that's not to disrespect any other position. But the fact is, even at my company, people that do a different role than I do make more money, and there are people who have different roles that make less. It's not just because they have the same tenure doesn't mean we make the same money. And so, is that something that school districts are looking at?
There's a lot of innovative things that people are doing and trying. We've got some that are looking at teacher career paths, basically, where you have regular classroom teachers, and then as you take on more responsibility, you become maybe, I'm just off the top of my head thinking, trying to remember all this, like a teacher leader, mentor teacher, then you go into maybe a little bit higher level where you become more of the expert leader. You might have a team, and then you start moving into other like management responsibilities, but create a separate, I have these crazy ideas like create a separate pay structure just for teachers and have different pay grades within there just for teachers based on separate criteria. But those are very difficult. They're not impossible, but they are difficult to implement. But could something wild and creative happen? Sure. Plano doesn't have it. They have a pay range for their teachers. They've had it for years.
They have a pay range for what?
For their teachers. They have an open range for their teachers. And other districts throughout the state have them as well. And we hear stories about, I had one superintendent tell me, now it was in the Houston area and NASA was laying off and they had an engineer and they said, I knew I wasn't going to get him forever, but I knew I wasn't going to get him at all for step 0. So they left the whole tenure thing out the window. They put a pay range in. For the most part, they pay their teachers for the experience, but for the exceptions, for the prize-winning teacher or the astronaut that retires or the person from Hewlett-Packard, it gives you the flexibility, which is why we always recommend pay ranges so that you can hire for some of these skills that is not only tenure. My example on that is tenure is, 20 years ago, I could program in DBase 3. How valuable is that right now?
Well, so
it's not valuable. I have 20 years of programming experience, but it's absolutely worthless. So, you have to kind of think. I encourage my district to think kind of outside or allow yourself the flexibility to hire the talent that you need. And these ranges allow you've got, they're based on what the market's paying for the jobs, it's based on the responsibility level of the jobs. And allow yourself the flexibility to hire who you need at what level you need. Now, there are some safeguards in place, so your folks aren't just going crazy, just willy-nilly. There's procedures in place that you're hiring above midpoint has got to be signed off on. There's got to be reasons. It has to be documented. There has to be objective reasons for doing that. But, there are some interesting ideas. There are some interesting things going on there other than Dallas ISD. And we'll be happy to get you as much as
That's great.
as much as we have. Because like I said, it's a very dynamic and fluid situation. So we'll get you what you can.
So 2 questions. By the way, I can program in DBase 3 and Foxbase. By the way,
wasn't that awesome?
Yeah, that was a long time
It's
ago.
a little bit more
We're both dating ourselves.
A little
there,
bit more
but
modern than
Yeah.
COBOL and Fortran, but
the dot prompt.
not much.
Brian doesn't even know what the dot prompt is.
I unfortunately do.
yeah, exactly. So, one is there anything legally that precludes us from providing a raise at the beginning of the year and then doing an adjustment mid-year?
The state constitutions, it has to be approved in the budget ahead of time. You're not allowed to, like in the private sector, you can say, yeah, you did a great job, here's $500. You can't do that in the public sector. You're not allowed to. So there are ways to do that when you do go through the budget process to build contingency, and I'm not an attorney, and I recommend you get with your legal counsel on making sure that you have the proper wording in place.
Yeah, well, I mean, we amend the budget, we're going to talk about it tonight, so we could always amend it, I guess. Maybe
Yeah,
Mr. Crowder can look into that.
like I said, it's state constitution stuff involved in this, so it's not something
Yeah.
I just willy-nilly do. I would be can it be done? Yes, I'd be very careful.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I want to go back to Ms. Prosnick's question on, I think it was Ms. Prosnick on stipends. So I think this is one where when we talk about this as a body corporate, we talk about salaries. We don't spend a lot of time on stipends. We can go out and print out the same stipend sheet that the teachers can, but it's my understanding back in the Going Green days, right, where we were having people retire, we also stripped some stipends on key positions like math and that type of thing. Has that changed?
No, sir. The specific one you mentioned, math and science, those were stipends aimed at market rarities when they were harder to fill, shortages. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. And subsequent, they're not shortages any longer, so therefore the stipend was removed.
Okay, so that would be one thing, that in the event that we had market conditions such that we were having shortages against Plano or Northwest or whatever, we could make some quick adjustments in that and not have to worry so much about the Constitution.
Now, yes, sir. We would just want to do them in the regular flow of business during the spring, propose them to Dr. Rogers' leadership team, and bring them to the board in the
good.
summer.
All right, great. Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you.
Ms. Lasan?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for the presentation.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Prosnick had one follow-up question.
Yes, it's for Dr. Bonner. What's the average length that a teacher stays in the district?
And the average length, that's a great question, Ms. Prosnick. Of course, we have individuals with zero experience, and a lot of them. And we also have some individuals deep into the 40s. I'm thinking about a couple of teachers, but I will pull that information and get it to you because it's on the TAPR report as well.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious where then they would fall on that pay increase model of, do they get to the sweet spot or not in the district?
Yeah. I can certainly pull that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, Ann, thank you for your presentation. I do have a question, just follow-up questions, I guess. I would be very curious about, Dr. Bonner, actually, I would be curious about if the board could get a list of the positions that aren't at the 100%.
Sure. Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I would be most interested in, I know Ms. Prosnick asked for stipends, but I'm very interested in bilingual stipends and what that looks like for other districts.
Okay. The 2017-18 data is still sitting out there. If you want 18-19, it will be probably the 1st of December before we can get it. So just whatever. I can have access to it. I can have access to the data for the 18-19 before they do. So
That'd be awesome.
okay.
We can
So
pull
just-
what we have and get it to you,
Yeah,
and then as
that
soon as it's available.
As soon as, like I said, I can extract it after Thanksgiving, and I don't think we're going to put it on the web until usually around January, something like that. So,
And Ms. Cox, we've talked previously, Dr. Bonner and I, about looking at stipends. We certainly know that we need to, you can't look at them every year, but once again, we want to be competitive, and we certainly want to compensate our folks fairly. I will tell you that when we did it, I think 3, maybe 4 years ago, we did away with the days and moved to straight stipends because the days were, very troublesome. That you give someone a stipend plus so many days, and so we moved just directly to stipends, which I think benefits all. And so, but we certainly plan to bring that to you.
yeah, as far as that move goes, we did a presentation not too long ago about 45% of the school district that participated in our salary survey have done away with the days. So it's a very common practice. But stipends don't move as dramatically, like pay increases like almost every year. School districts don't tend to increase their stipends every year. So you could go several years without looking at stipends, but they are trickier than just regular pay. So you have to be really careful to look at all the variables when it comes to stipends and how they're paid.
Thank you, Anne. We really appreciate it.
You're
Great
very welcome.
presentation.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Ann.
Yes.
And I know they appreciate the
And you get
CEU.
and you got an hour training credit.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a bonus.
Okay, Mr. Ball, finance report.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. What we have, the next item is a report from two of our architect firms related to just a status update on the design of several new buildings. And I believe representatives from Huckabee are gonna lead off, and then they'll do first half or so of the presentation, and then Stantec will wrap it up. So
Jeff, can you give one of those mics? Thank you.
All right, excellent. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity, school board members and Dr. Rogers. My name is Conrad Judd. I'm with Huckabee and Associates, and I'll be sharing with you the new elementary school, your new elementary school on Mill Street. So we'll start with the site plan. You'll see that the project is oriented to Mill Street. It's placed on Mill Street because of the existing facility, and allows us to organize the bus and parent drop-off in such a manner that you have plenty of stacking for your parent drop-off and for your bus loop as well. It allows you to address Mill Street. It was told to us that we need to make sure this represents the Main Street architectural aesthetic and addresses Mill Street properly. So you can see that the front door is facing the main and larger parking lot there. It says 25 spaces. This property is 14.8 acres, and you have approximately 152 parking spaces on the site. Any questions on the site, about the site?
We'll ask all of our questions at your
Okay,
end of the
excellent. Thank you.
presentation. Thank you.
First floor plan, you can see that the administration is there at the front of the parent drop-off. You have a covered area for those students that are arriving. The area below that is in the center of the building is the green, which is the library.
Conrad, can you use the point? There's a laser pointer.
Oh,
Thank
excellent.
you.
Sorry. So then you'll see the front door and entrance. You can see the academics on the back side of the building here with a very simple circulation. The approach is one that allows you to enter the building and see all the way through the building to the back side of the bus drop-off, and covered areas presented as well for drop-off and pickup for the buses. The kinder, first, second are on the lower level of the two-story academic wing, and the fine arts, stage, music, and art here with the art access to outdoors, and then the gym activity space is also functioning as your shelter. Second floor allows you to accommodate third, fourth, and fifth. Each of the academic areas have a collaboration space that is directly accessible from each one of those classrooms. We have a main monumental stair at the center of the building, and then secondary stairs as well. I mentioned once already, the architectural aesthetic is to blend in and match the downtown area, the city hall, and the fine arts area, our building, with the mixture of the red brick and stone aesthetic. The approach here, you can see the main entrance and the covered area, and some of the detailing that's matching those buildings in the downtown area. This is as you arrive and coming into the main entrance. On the left is your library, and then seeing all the way through the dining to the back of the building with the high volume and use of some warm tones in the main entrance. This is the lower level collab space for the first and second grade. and that main stair that enters into that, you can see the transparency and access to that collab space. This is that second floor collab space for third, fourth, and fifth. We are providing natural light to these spaces as well as to every classroom, and that is also creating a nice aesthetic to the exterior where you have a pitched roof on that second floor. And this is looking back towards the main entrance in the dining space, seeing the stage here and the serving area as well, and the library here in the background. So a lot of glass, a lot of connectivity in the main public spaces of the building. This gives you a sense of that two-story volume, the pitched roofs, the clear story to those collab spaces, the kindergarten first in this area, and second, third, and fourth and fifth on the top.
Okay, so questions about elementary school on Mill Street?
Ms. Hassett?
Okay. Ask them all once again? Okay. Is the football field staying on that property?
We will be having a play area, but not a football field.
We are, to use a third middle school football field, we are repurposing the field behind Harmon with bleachers, and I think.
Correct.
So-
Yes, the football field is gone right now on the Mill Street property, so, yeah.
It sits currently right in this area, and so will be where the new building is occupied. We will have a large play area once the building, playfield area, once the building is removed. You can see
Where
dash-
where the football field used to be?
Actually, the football field is right here.
Oh.
The building.
in the new
What's
building.
that large rectangle that's shaded green?
That's
And
the
this will be
existing
the
building.
future play area.
Future play area?
Yes, ma'am.
That's where it is.
Was the football
And-
field off Mill or off High School?
Football field was off the mill.
Not off high school. There were actually two fields, but the one that we used for middle school was off High School Drive. Now, I will tell you, Ms. Hassett, and I mentioned this to Ms. Cox last week, but, you know, we have had some discussions with the city of Lewisville about potentially their interest in creating some parks that they would maintain in some of these areas, so that would possibly be a one up in that upper left-hand corner, though.
But that's where the playground is right now? That's where it's slated to be?
It's not a playground, that's
Two
just a
playgrounds
play
here,
area,
this will be an open
just
play
grass
field.
area.
Okay, where the current building sits.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
For safety, how much glass is the front or any outside wall? How much glass? We now have a few schools that have a lot of glass. So safety reasons, how much glass are on outsides?
So this particular solution has a standard classroom window size. We're not using large.
How about the front entrance or near the cafeteria?
So you can see this is the main entrance here, so it gives you an idea of the amount of glass. So there's a good amount. What is nice about it is that is really intentional to allow administration to see who's coming and going, to have the visual control and connectivity to the entrance. A similar amount is at the back of the building as well for the dining space.
So for ballistics glass, how much is ballistics glass in the front of the school then?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for Rand, you know, we don't want to create dark spaces. I mean, we wanted to have natural light in classrooms. So that was really sort of the direction that they took. I don't know if you can answer a question regarding ballistic glass versus regular glass.
I'd like, if, you know what, Doctor, if we might raise a point of order. I think I know where Ms. Hassett's going. I've got a lot of questions on this, and I just wonder if this might be best if we go to executive session or choose to go to another point in time. Because we could talk about other schools and glass, and I'm just wondering if that's,
She concurred with you, so we'll move on.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, next question then. Second floor, I didn't know we were having a second floor. With this space, I know Purnell is sitting there, so it's hard to use the space. However, why do we have to use the second story? Because additional cost to creating a structure with a second story?
There's actually some efficiency with the use of the second floor plan in terms of cost. And we did study quite extensively options based on the existing facility, and felt like this was the best and most cost-effective solution for the district. Some of the things that we explored came all the way around the back of the building and were causing quite a lengthy travel for the students. So that's why we proposed to
Those are
two-story.
littler legs.
Be nice.
And I'm assuming there's, of course, an elevator somewhere for needed
Right in the
access.
center. Elevator's right in the
Okay,
center.
near the classroom wing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, last question, colors. How are the colors chosen? Are those gonna, I mean, there's yellow in there, so we've had, some color issues and some.
Those aren't colors, so that's just sections of the building that
Well,
they've
the building, there was
color-coded.
some
We did.
highlighted colors.
We got a lot of green tile, I think.
I don't want another tile.
I can promise you, you're not gonna have that.
Just wondering why yellow was a highlighted color when that's not necessarily a.
I can talk to that a little bit. So what we really try to do, moving through really all the buildings and a lot of our renovations, is to try to, especially the materials that are the longer lasting materials, your plastic laminates and your brick colors, really try to keep the color on materials that are easy to change. So, paint, and even with those, we try to stay a lot more neutral, and really let the students' work be the color in the building, but then not keeping it as, monotone or has some kind of interest. So we are taking that into consideration for sure.
Ms. Timish.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate the drawings. I love the fact that there's going to be natural light in all of the classrooms. Speaking to, I know that this is probably going to be built to energy efficient, but what have you done that would create to make sure that we're being as energy efficient as possible with these new buildings?
So a good point on this one was the compact nature of it and the efficiency of a two-story. So the footprint is very small, the perimeter is very small and limited. So that compact nature really helps in terms of the energy use and its exposure to that. So the systems that you use within the district are very efficient. We've kept with all the standards there, and so you should be proud of the systems that your district uses to have efficient buildings.
Okay, thank you. And then also with us using a space that's been there for years and years and years, has there been anything, and maybe this would be more to you too, with concerns just as we're removing the building with anything that's seeped into the soil? Is there any concern for the elementary school with regards to once we pull that building up?
No, ma'am. We, of course, that building being in the age of it is, we are having to remove materials. Of course, we do all the testing before anything is removed. We have all those reports, and then we have third parties that actually do testing as we remove materials, and they clear those areas as we do the renovation and construction and removal. So there shouldn't be anything left that hasn't been dotted I's and T's crossed. We're completely done demolishing the existing facility, completely clean.
Thank you, because that's where we want, hopefully, a beautiful park to be eventually.
Absolutely.
So those are my questions.
Okay, Ms. Sells.
Yeah, could you go back to the parking? I want to make sure there will be, the red is indicated as, is that your
This is the
bus
bus.
route? But
Yes, ma'am.
will there be that exit onto Charles open? Or will we only have one entrance and exit?
We're proposing that we would leave that parking and have that exit there, yes, ma'am. We're showing the main circulation of this in say, in events where you have an assembly and that allows you to have that additional exit and
And
entrance.
can you kind of talk to me about the entrance there
So the idea is that we
to not take it off of Mill Street for
We
safety
studied-
and
Yes,
safety
ma'am.
reasons?
Yes, ma'am. With the amount of traffic that's on Mill Street, it was recommended that we use the existing curb cut on Purnell that will allow us to get as much stacking to the front door as possible, to allow, if there was any backup, that it would be here, not on Mill Street.
That was an important point as well with the city early on, was that they did not want vehicles to
city informed us that the street beyond Purnell on Mill will actually was going to be turned into a 2-lane road, and so it's going to actually be going to 2 lanes at some point in their downtown plan that they have shown right now. So it's going to go from 4 lanes as it is currently to 2 lanes, right past Purnell there. And so they definitely made it a point to us to say, let's keep any cars off of Mill because it's going to be a problem if we don't.
And just, it's already been said with that much glass, just safety. I can just, it scares me being able to see in that front door and looking straight into that cafeteria. It just seems like keep that.
It's always a difficult balance to have the visibility and the safety, as Dr. Rogers alluded to. Of course, we have done different glazing options and things that we'll can discuss, but certainly always trying to find that balance.
Anything else, Ms. Sells? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, so a couple questions. One is, Jason, would you repeat what you said about the city and Mill Street?
Sure. So early on, the city in their plan for the downtown area stated to us that the area north of Purnell and Mill would actually turn into a 2-lane area with actually head-in parking, kind of like you see on Main Street. So that area, they had mentioned to us that that's what would be occurring there. So it would be kind of not a choke point, but it would be changing. The
So
traffic.
Mill Street north of Purnell
Yes.
would go from 4 lanes to 2.
Yes, that's what they had told
2
us
lanes,
initially.
okay. I think they're actually approving that tonight.
Okay.
And Mill would continue to be 2 lanes.
North of that point of Purnell, yes.
North of Purnell?
Yes.
So south of Purnell is going to be,
What we understood would still be 4 lanes, but they're
Still
right
be-
past Purnell.
okay, I
It'd be
see. They're going to go
narrowing
down to
2
2 lanes. I got it, okay.
That's correct.
All right.
If you look at the map of Old Town proper, actually, Purnell is the boundary line. So we're right outside of what's considered Old Town. So I think that's why that
We want to
line of delineation is right there.
Got it. With the parking set up the way it is in the back, when will the support center be torn down?
So the plan right now is Purnell will be in operation during the first year of operation of the elementary school, while we can renovate the existing College Street and Central spaces. As soon as those renovations are complete, obviously we'll be able to move folks out and then do demo of Purnell.
So will we redo that bus route, or how's that?
that one exit on Charles.
Yes, yeah. So currently the project is split up into a phase 1, phase 2. So there are certain elements that are part of the phase 2. Once Purnell is being demolished, we finish out some paving and obviously finish out that green space that was.
But I'm thinking if the bus route is coming off of high school and going up and behind the school and around, isn't Purnell sitting there?
So we've already demolished portions of Purnell.
Okay, that's
at
right.
the beginning of this
Eastern
project.
portion that's
Okay.
showing on there.
Correct. So
Okay.
as you drive by the site now, you'll actually see kind of where the end of that building was demolished.
I'm going to say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's actually serious. I think we need to have, and Jason and Randy, you could do it when we name this school. I think we need to do this presentation because it's going to be an amazing school. I'm just going to leave the glass issue alone for now. I would ask though that we not make. I'm just one person. That we not make any procurement decisions on glass at this point. That we have a chance to talk about this at our next board meeting, executive session, just for 5 minutes. I love the idea of the increased light, but I think it's just something we need to talk through.
And Mr. Miller, we can talk about it, but it wouldn't be an executive session. I don't think there's anything that gives us
I think if we
permission.
could, I think we
Just
do it
because
under
of
safety and security.
Okay.
It's not,
Okay.
it's not
Yeah,
a
we
rela-
could do it as the safety.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah.
I got you.
Anything else, Mr. Miller?
No, thank you.
Ms. Lasan?
So as a mom who's sat in carpool lines before, I love this idea of the Purnell, of that. That's fabulous. And then I guess my other question was, in flipping through the interiors, looking at this, are all those finishes pretty much the same? And the one I want to point out is the ceilings with the wood look on the ceilings. Is that going to be what's there?
That is our proposal, is to have the wood ceiling, yes, ma'am.
I just think that's really cool looking. I just wanted to say that. I think that's really great.
Like Hebron 9.
It's like Hebron 9.
Well, I have not been in Hebron 9 yet,
Well,
so
you
I just didn't know that. Well, yay.
And
I
the green
think it's-
tiles like Hebron made.
Okay, we're not gonna talk about that. So I think that's, I love that. The other one, could you flip back just to the one where it's the diagram of the interior of the building? One more ahead of that. So down here on the end, I guess I'm just looking at how, you see the hallways and then kind of down here, there's no hallway. So keep
This-
going, yes, like up and down.
Kinder. That is a hallway.
It is a
That's a
hallway.
wide hall.
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
The collaboration.
Collaborate.
Oh, it's collaboration.
So it's a mixture of the circulation and the hallway.
Got it. Well, okay, so I think y'all have done a beautiful job. I think it looks beautiful, and I think that, it's gonna be something that the district and the city can be very proud of.
Thank you. We enjoy working with your team and staff.
Good.
It's great. Students and staff are gonna love it.
Thank you, Ms.
Very
Lasan.
proud.
Ms. Brosnick?
Thank you for the presentation, and stay right here on this slide. What is that pink area?
This is an administration.
Okay, that's all administration. All right. I'm old, I cannot see that well. I have a question also about the tile color and where we are putting color. And that is that we're going to be giving them an opportunity to choose their colors for their school, and so forth. And I know that paint can come last, and that should be an easy procurement. I'm more curious about the tile that is on the outside, the facade of the restrooms, because I'm assuming it's going to look a little bit like
Some of the refreshes.
some of the refreshes that we've had. And I know that there's been some concern about tile color choice at some of our refreshes, that it wasn't exactly what they thought it was going to be. And so I'm curious if in the procurement process that there's time, am I making sense, to get the color of choice?
Absolutely. So when you see images like you saw tonight, that was kind of the design intent.
Sure.
As we go into construction, obviously there's submittals and shop drawings that come into the actual product, and that's when we have a chance to review those. We're very fortunate in this case that we know who the principal is, and we're able to communicate with her and share those samples with the bride.
So she'll be part of those discussions, and whenever they,
Conversations with her
okay.
already.
And so whenever they have, whenever the students choose whatever their mascot and whatever their colors are, that we're still in that time frame. So going to the outside, where are people at Purnell going to be parking for the year that they're still there?
Right. So, good question, and parking's been a challenge at Purnell
Right.
forever. I think the idea is they'll continue to use that back lot on the side. Yes, that one.
So it's all, it's existing.
Right,
They have
correct.
now.
And the
What they have
existing,
now will be existing, and so it's part of that phase 1, phase 2 that Randy was talking about earlier. What they have currently, they would have
Other than the
throughout.
front. Right, other than the front parking lot that you see.
I was
now.
gonna say, are we gonna change the entrance to Purnell
no.
for that, so it'll still be that front?
They'll still have.
So
The parking lot on the corner of Charles
Yeah,
and
you can
Purnell
park there.
is still there.
okay.
There's a full parking lot there.
Yeah.
It's not shown.
And
Okay, I
around-
was gonna say that it's not
and
shown on
around
the
to
slide, and I got.
west of the building, there's some
Okay.
parking.
And so I know you, to Mr. Mills' question earlier, I know you said that we're waiting, it'll be approximately, will it be by May of that year, do you think that Purnell will be gone? Do you know what I mean, like a year from May, will Purnell still be there?
It's hard to say at this point. I mean, I think the original assumption was, it could potentially take 1 year.
Okay.
So when this new school opens up in August, potentially Purnell would be in operation for that full year. And the reason for that is the renovations at College Street and Central are very different, actually. One is really building component related at Central, but it's a very large space. And then College Street, there's some modifications to make. We're working with the contractor on both of those now to not only work through cost estimates, but also phasing of construction and how fast they can actually get those done. The one positive on both of those is we feel like we can do work during the school year because obviously College Street will be vacated. We're hoping that we have the same opportunity at Central, that the students that move from Central into this new elementary school will vacate a space that we can renovate during the school year. And if that's the case, then we're hoping to get the renovation done sooner. So we'll be back in front of you with a little more information, especially when we have the GMPs to those two projects on what kind of that schedule looks like.
And Huckabee, did you all make a model of the school? Like a physical?
We do not have a physical model.
Okay.
We have a digital model. But
Okay.
We don't have a physical model.
No, I was just wondering if you had a physical model, if that could be taken for tour of sorts.
We can take you on a digital tour.
Take him on a digital
Not
tour.
tonight, but
I'm excited to get this built and to get the kids who have belonged at that school. So thank you very much.
And Ms. Prosnick, I do want to be clear, while we're going to seek and get principal input on things, they're not going to be the sole deciders on, various colors. I mean, we're not going to allow one person to decide all the different finishes in a school. I mean,
No.
I just want to be clear.
No,
but I didn't want
just-
to give the impression that
No, but I guess
certainly input.
the input,
Yeah,
and I know that other principals have had color choice for their tile at their restrooms, at that lovely facade at the refreshes. And so I guess
Within reason,
I would assume, well, they're given choices.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's like a toddler. Do you say you want apple
That's right.
juice or orange juice? But they were given choices, and I would expect that those same
Absolutely.
considerations would be given.
Absolutely.
Ms. Hassett, you had a follow-up
Just
question?
one more thing. I just wanted to also say this is a beautiful rendition, beautiful drawing of the facility, and I'm very excited about it. My predecessor, Mike McDaniel, one of the things he had said several times that I had heard him say was, the curved walls. And this does not have it. It has a beautiful facility for the teachers and the staff to be proud of, with great learning area, without all the extra things that can cost us money. So we're using our money wisely by having structures that are easier to build without flourishes. So I greatly appreciate that particular thing, and I hope we can continue to see that.
Ms. Timmons, you had a follow-up
I
question?
just had a question. We reached out to Lewisville Bible to ask for this gap year, just to ask it, because they have a huge parking lot around Charles, and Pastor Rogers is always so generous with the school district, just to say we're gonna have two campuses going simultaneously. Could we just have that permission? And I know that they would graciously allow that, but just to give them a heads up.
Yeah, we'll be more than happy to reach out to them.
I've got one last question.
Mr.
Oh,
Miller?
sorry, did you?
Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
So the last two campuses that we opened, I think you guys remember, before your time, Randy, but Marcus and Palermo 9, and we ran into some issues with COs and punch lists and everything. Do you guys? And I know we're not talking to you guys, the architects, we're not talking to GMP yet, but are we kind of anticipating that we need some slack on rain days or whatever, so that when we're talking. What was different about those schools is that they were additions, right? This is a brand new school, brand new kids. You guys feel good about the timing and some flexibility if we have some summer weather events?
Sure. So, and of all the projects you'll see tonight, obviously this is the one that is in construction now. And so the historic rains we've had over the last 2 months are having an impact on us right now. But what we're doing is we're working with the contractor, working with the architect, and coming up with what we call a recovery schedule. And that's where we start to look at, what kind of trades can you expedite, double up? Are there any pieces of structure that you can order ahead of time? Do we need to switch the order of any of the construction methods? And so that's what we're doing now to see how we can make up time. Really, once you get in the dry, most of those elements aren't as big of a factor at that point. And so that's really our critical path right now, is to get the slabs poured, to get vertical, and get in the dry. So great question. And Yeah, it's certainly one that, I mean, I don't think anybody anticipated the type of weather that we've had the last couple of months. So, but this one was under budget at GMP time. No concerns right now, budget related, but there may be some expenditures related to expediting, maybe some overtime, things like that. So, but we feel like within the project we can absorb those costs.
Great. Thanks, Rick.
Right.
Okay, and last but not least, but I just want to commend Huckabee because I love how you have taken the Old Town look and you have incorporated that as the city is doing renovations on Mill Street. I think this is just the face and the start of that renovation for Old Town, so I commend you for that. I just had a few questions. One is the movable carts. It looked like they were library carts that you had in the innovative spaces. Are those actually library carts, or what are those? It looked like books on there that you had in the drawings.
We're still in discussion in terms of the actual furniture, so that would be part of the furniture purchase. So I don't know that we would be using that type of equipment in that space. It's still under discussion in terms of what.
Yeah,
components
those
would be.
types of decisions haven't been made. I think those are just
We were
placeholders
trying
that
to represent
architects put in there.
I would like to go on the record that I love them because it looked like they were on wheels, that they could be moved into a classroom, are innovative, and I love that kids have books and will be reading them. So just chalk that on the record for me. The other thing is the stairs. I know this is kind of a strange question, but are there size of stairs? Because I'm just thinking about little people and climbing stairs, trying to get to their classroom, being, rowdy kids. How does that
So there is
play?
there's code requirements that stipulate the height of the rise and run of the stair, and so that those are meeting requirements and are similar to what you'd see in a residential home. So nothing that's going to be more difficult for the students to navigate than they would in their own home.
Okay, and I would presume, I guess, Dr. Rogers, that they would stay on their floor besides to come to the cafeteria or,
Yeah.
okay.
And a lot of there are stair rails that are two different heights
Yes,
for
We do have
smaller
a
children.
grab bar
Okay.
and rail
Yeah.
for the
Grab
smaller.
bars.
We intentionally put, as you might imagine, put the younger students on the second floor, and those that are younger will not have to, will have no reason to go up to the second floor.
Great, okay, they'll stay on their level. Okay. Then the playground, I think it's kind of been answered, but when will they get a playground and what will they be doing for recess?
Oh, yes, ma'am. They'll have a playground when the school opens.
Oh, okay.
So the two, the green rectangle and the green square, yes, right there. Those are the actual playground spots for the school.
Okay.
So those will be in place. It's really what happens once Purnell is gone with that green space up on the corner. And that was, I think, where the potential for maybe working
The
with the
park
city.
area.
Yeah.
There'll be
Okay.
some fencing there. Like-
Yes, fencing around the playground, yes, sir, yes.
Like
Okay.
maybe even the height of what you did at Lily Jackson, or are we not allowed to do that?
I'll have to go back and look at that, yeah, but we are.
I think they're 6 feet now.
Yeah, I think that is typical, right. We usually don't do 4 foot.
And I just have a request, if we're talking to the city in some request, that we make sure that we have some kind of understanding with them, that maybe for field day, that we would have the right of use of that, so that, I know that, park space is a little different and liabilities and so forth for cities, but, I think if we have those discussions now, that we can really use that space to an asset if they do partner with us in some way.
Yeah, and all those types of agreements, Ms. Sells, we'll certainly bring to y'all before we ever sign anything with the city, I promise.
Okay, my final comment was, and maybe you don't know this, but just to kind of allude to what Ms. Hassett said, but on the reverse side, just like your home, when you build a 2-story home, it's a lot less expensive than a 1-story home just because of the materials. So I would presume we would come under budget because of we're doing the 2-story? Or would that not be the case because of the innovation and things that we're doing inside the campus?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so the GMP that was approved by the board was under the original budget. So, I mean, that was part of the consideration there. Because a couple of things that we had to add into this project was the abatement and demolition of Purnell. It's a little outside of just the standard elementary package. And then, as Dr. Rogers mentioned, we actually are paying for the bleachers and press box that we needed over at the Harmon site to have middle school games there. So,
Which is coming out of that budget.
right. All that is part of this project budget, yes, ma'am.
I just meant the school itself will be under budget from what we had allotted for.
Absolutely. Yes, it is unfunded.
Any
Y'all
other?
already approved that.
follow-up questions? Okay, great presentation.
No, it's great. This is great, guys. Really, really excited about this for these kids and the community. And really looks good. Looks good.
Thanks, Conrad. All right, Brother Jonathan, your turn.
All right, Cowboys about to kick off, so I'll be as brief as I can. I'm Jonathan Aldis, Board Administration Trustees. I'm with Stantec Architecture. I will open with one that is not quite as glamorous, but is certainly a necessary project in the bond that leads to the second project. So Vickery Elementary Edition, near and dear to my heart because I'm a neighbor to Vickery, so I've paid a lot of attention to this 10 classroom edition. So I won't spend a lot of time on this other than to say, other than this being a 10 classroom edition, which this district has done many, many times over, what's a little bit different about this one is this is in its entirety being constructed as a storm shelter. Conrad alluded to storm shelter. All these buildings that you're designing now have them. This entire addition is being designed as shelter, which means not just the students in the addition are protected, but it's now sized adequately for the entire campus to take shelter. So that's a good thing. When you drive up and look at it in the future, it's on the wing that we're adding up. The little key image you see up there is on the far west corner of the site, kind of where the portables are, the soccer field to the west is where we propose to have the addition. Randy alluded to the fact that the other two projects I'm going to show you are still in design. This project actually bid just last week. So this one is getting ready to move forward because it is the necessary precursor for the Hedrick project. We can talk a little bit about it in phasing. But when this is finished and complete, when you drive by it, there'll be no discernible sign that this is a storm shelter. It's not going to be a concrete bunker. It is the same brick. It is the same windows on the classroom. So from the street and from every other member of the public's perception, although you may want to inform them because this is a good thing that you're doing, it'll look ostensibly the same. The classroom windows will be the same, except these happen to be rated for 250-mile-an-hour winds and projectiles being launched at them. So not your traditional glass anymore. The exterior walls are block and brick, almost completely solid. The rooftop is solid concrete. There's a lot of other details that are not nearly as glamorous as those that we could go into, but the bottom line is this is designed to withstand that 250-mile-an-hour F5 tornado that we have seen exactly zero in the Metroplex ever. But if it ever comes, you're ready, and you'll be ready everywhere now. The only two unique things as well. At the end of this is an exterior hallway. In this image, this would take us outside, and at the hallway that goes back into the existing building, what will be there and not seen until the day that is needed is storm shutter, coiling shutters that basically come down and encapsulate this block. And this entire space now is self-sufficient for 2 hours. So if you lose power, you lose water, you lose gas, all those essential functions as the code determines are still in operation within that storm shelter. Doesn't mean you have air conditioning, you have ventilation. You have ventilation for towers, lighting, and everything else. So that's really what's behind the Vickery addition. Pretty straightforward 10 classroom addition, but with a really stout structural skeleton behind it. Not modifying parking, not modifying, really just making room for it on the side. So there's not a lot there. I didn't bring you renderings. It looks just like the current building. Are there any questions on?
Ms. Timish?
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate it. How did this affect, because I've seen these storm shelters for gyms, not seen it for a classroom. How did that affect the classroom? Does that affect the classroom size or the walls?
Just the construction of it, nothing that anybody would perceive. And actually, your ed-spec standard is your exterior walls are concrete masonry units or block with a brick skin. So it's the same material here. It's just that block is treated and reinforced very differently than we have in the past. It's almost completely solidly filled with grout or concrete. It's the easiest way to think of it. Once you're inside the space, really, you're just treating the exterior shell. And so it didn't change classroom size. It didn't change any of the perceived aesthetic. It's little things like how the air conditioning feeds into the building, because you also have to assume that rooftop unit is gone. And I can't leave that 3x5 hole in the roof that's with a typical building. So there's a complex series of baffles or louvers that close every penetration larger than 2 inches that goes through this structure. But it's all above ceiling. It's nothing you'd ever see. So in storm mode, you don't even have to, you really have two options if you have windows in storm shelters now. You either have a shutter that comes down over every window and you're counting on a teacher. In this case, 10 individual teachers. You'd count on them to close their shutters. Or what we talked about early on is that probably wasn't the most feasible solution. So then we now, because of this code mandate, we now have rated window systems. And so that was just a simpler thing. So quite literally, standing in that room, it looks just like any other room. There's one small room for a storm control room, kind of tucked at the end of this hallway. That's kind of where your communication hub would be. And then the restrooms are also a portion of that storm code requirement that you have restrooms within that space. beyond that, you won't perceive any difference.
Thank you. And this is probably not for you, Jonathan, but just how, with classroom chairs and bookshelves and other students, I know you've probably answered this, but just walk me through, how does that look getting an entire rest of the campus in there?
Sure, well, that actually probably is something that Jonathan can help answer, because the square footage factor that you take into account, like if you're using the gym, you don't have to factor in any of the furniture. There's actually a number factor that they have to look at.
The code's prescriptive on that. So if it's a wide open space with no furnishings, then it's 5 square feet per person, which seems small, but then again, if an F5 is bearing down on you, I think you give up your personal boundaries for that time. That's what the code presupposes anyway, especially in an elementary. As you get into, there's 2 different types of furnished space. There's fixed furnishings and loose furnishings. This would kind of be a blend of the two. We try to go on the conservative side, and then there's a factor you have to apply. So it's no longer 5 square feet. It goes up to 7 or 9, depending on. So the code's very prescriptive about what has to happen. So this complies with the code and a little bit of extra square footage. Do I think it's going to be comfortable when 700 to 800 people get in there? Not for a long duration, but that's what the code anticipates. It's really designed as a 2-hour shelter. There's a different classification in the code that's a FEMA shelter that's made for 24 hours, and that's a whole other set. This is the storm code that this area, the state specifically, is under. So it does affect you in that you need more space, but we were just fortunate enough we had enough classrooms and hallway space. Really, the whole space is considered shelter.
Okay, and so you will plan on actually putting children in the hallway?
All of that square footage would be the shelter space.
I will add one thing on top of that. If you recall, several months ago, I don't remember what month, but we brought before the board forming an LEPC committee, so a local emergency planning committee. And so part of that committee's role is to really help educate the campus on how do you move the furniture in case of a severe weather event. And so that'll be one of the things that they go over with them to help them through that. So there's a lot of questions out there just like that. How do you handle the furniture? How do you handle the restroom situation? How do you handle when you shut the actual door so the shelter is closed? Kind of like Noah's Ark. Once that door is closed, it's closed.
You need to be inside when the door closes.
Because obviously with this being a little bit more unique, that I would be interested in knowing how the campus will, kindergarten goes here, first grade goes here, second grade, so they're not all stopping at the front.
That does need to be a part of that plan.
Thank you.
Ms. Hills?
Is that what the 2 little boxes down there are, the control centers?
So one is a mechanical room, and then this is the command room or control room.
And then what are the little spaces above the bathroom?
We still have a mechanical room, and part of the power system is all of the lighting and all the electrical systems are on an inverter system. So there's a battery rack power system that's in one of those rooms as well. So that's all part of kind of the shelter.
Those will be shuttered. I mean, those will not be accessible.
Yes, those are not open to students or staff. Those are really support. The control room is open to whoever the district would mandate as the person who controls it on that campus. But those other spaces are really kind of behind the scenes spaces that make everything function.
And then do you have a site with the parking? I mean, is that only on grass where that's going?
Yes, right now, the site, so Kirkpatrick runs here and Wager Road runs down this side if this is the building. You've got a little bit of staff parking, visitor parking here, and then the main parking lot's back here. There is a fire lane that comes up and terminates behind the building here, so we're kind of right at where the end of that fire lane terminates, which is fortuitous
And
too.
does the addition of this add to the parking that is needed there, or do you still meet within that?
The count that's provided there, you already have satisfied with the spaces that are on site, so we don't need to modify existing parking count.
You're gonna want one of those long lanes, like.
The one thing about this side is people queue on Kirkpatrick, come all the way down here. There is a mile of stack out there, so that is the good news.
Yeah.
And parents still cheat and come park out here and wager and drive me crazy in the morning. I'm not speaking as a citizen. It's an observation.
Mr. Miller?
Looks good, Jonathan. Thank you. Great.
Ms. Lasan?
This is really cool. I guess my question, it made me think, are we doing something like this in Mill Street?
Yes.
We are? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So all new construction moving forward, when I say new construction, that's really what it is. So 20-year refreshes, we're not going back and putting a storm shelter. It's very expensive. I mean, that's
Sure.
one thing that, obviously, you can kind of read between the lines on this, all these extra systems, the really thick walls. It's really expensive. But, new Mill Street Elementary, the Hedrick Middle School, Career Center, those are all be designed with storm shelters.
So where is it, is the one at Mill Street, is it kind of like
It's
this?
the gym.
The play area.
We've explored different approaches. I mean, we actually had talked with Jonathan early on about, hey, do we tear down or rebuild the existing gym in Vickery to be the storm shelter? Is that more cost effective than making the 10 classroom addition? And so through different studies, we really tried to end up with the most economical solution. And on this one, it happened to be the 10 classroom addition, just simply because of the volume. I mean, you can imagine your gym is your largest space. You're paying that extra amount for a large volume. But on some schools, you need it. So.
And on the next two projects, I'll show you two other variations. So
Okay.
shelters, it depends on what system you're using. You can,
It's very interesting. Thank you.
it's been a learning curve for all of us.
Well, along those lines, I want to commend the district that we only, I believe, statutorily had to provide the shelter for just those 10 classrooms, and we decided to make that for the entire school. So,
That's correct.
pat on our back.
Yeah, that's correct, Ms. Prosnick. We appreciate the board, because it did cost, what was the additional cost?
Well, as Jonathan mentioned, they actually received the bids last week, so we're waiting on the final GMP
Okay.
now. But I mean, compared to a normal classroom wing, I mean, almost,
Yeah,
not quite, but almost double.
I think it's solidly double.
It's well worth the safety of our students.
Right.
Absolutely.
I had a question on how, this is probably more for y'all, how this is going to look on our facilities report. Because we're going to have 10 classrooms, obviously, that are newer, that kind of a thing on, in addition to this building. And when we're looking at the air conditioning and all that kind of stuff, is that going to be separated out?
Absolutely. So if you look through the study now, every building that has an addition, it's always separated out, and then that 20-year clock kind of starts over for each individual piece. Where we start to look at things is if we're doing a 20-year refresh and we've got an addition that's 18, 19 years old, we really start to look at that work order data, and we may do that addition at the same time. So yes, ma'am, it will be part of the assessment, and you'll actually have visibility to the addition.
And one other thing that we'll have to add on these is the systems that are part of
Right.
this will be new to the assessment document. So some of these backup systems and the battery backups and things like that, we'll have to get those in the plan.
And I'm assuming we'll have telephone service out of there?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much.
Cell service is going to be difficult. When we build
I
these
didn't say
concrete
cell
boxes,
service.
we're finding is it's very difficult to get a cell signal out of a bunker. But
That was going to be my question. Do we have good connectivity for wireless, or for how can we?
getting the wireless in there isn't an issue because you can do a simple expander as long as the other building is still there. And we're talking two different circumstances. In the 99% of the time where everything's running on a normal day, that's not a problem. When the storm door closes, yes, you probably don't have the best, you won't have wireless back to the original building, but that's part of the control room, having direct landline access, going back to good old analog connectivity. We've been exploring in other places, use digital repeater systems that can repeat outside of these concrete structures. They get to be pretty expensive. So that's a detail we'd need to work through on that. But for now, you still have good old-fashioned analog connectivity out of there to be able to communicate inside and outside of the structure.
And then just another question, for the current adjoining wall, the drawing is different. Are you reinforcing it with grout as well? What about that abut wall?
This wall is
Yes.
what abuts the current.
Yes.
And because of fire, there's two codes at play here. There's the storm code and then there's the fire code. The fire code would already say I have to build two separate structures. So essentially, my new structure will be
Right
both
next to
fire
it,
rated
right?
and storm rated immediately adjacent to it. So yes.
Okay, great presentation. So my question is for the district. Are we getting rid of the portables? All of them?
Absolutely.
I'll slide this down to Randy.
I'll answer for it.
Not sure I can answer it, but yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. One school down, a couple more to go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great presentation. Does anyone have any follow-up questions? No?
All right,
Okay,
moving
thank you
right
so
along.
much.
Hedrick Middle School, a little more complicated. I'll try and be concise, but give you kind of the bird's eye view, as you already know, of this campus. So obviously those 10 classrooms allow us some freedom with the final disposition of Hedrick Elementary School. So the goal is to get, as we have, go ahead and get that one bid and under construction so that we have a place for these students to go, so that at the end of this school year is our last effective school year for the elementary campus. I only bring that up from a phasing plan standpoint because you guys are familiar with the campus. The elementary runs kind of through this line with a shared kitchen. So we've got a little bit of selective demo we have to work on. This project's in design development, we still have one more phase of documents, so we're still designing. So the things I'm going to show you, there's some items in flux, including finishes. We haven't even really run through finishes yet, but I didn't mean to look at you, look at everybody. So finishes are this is a work in progress. Pencils down, here's some images, and here's where we are. But so in terms of a phasing plan, we're still working through that with our construction manager. But I think we've got some of the same general idea. We would keep this parking in place, but just broad brush, the goal would be to start removing the elementary school as soon as we mobilize on the site. Now, obviously, the middle school stays in place for the entirety of the project, probably right up until the last minute. Obviously, when you move out, then that final summer would be the demolition and the putback. So that starts to inform a bit of our site location, obviously. So we're going to sit as close as we possibly can. If you guys remember Old Settlers years ago, we built about 10 feet off of the old Settlers building. We're about 15 feet here, so we gave ourselves 5 extra feet. Tried to put that building as far to the north as we could, because at the end of the day, we were worried that when we did do the final demolition, suddenly you'd have this building that's way back on that side. And if you've driven back behind Hedrick anytime recently, you'll remember it's about a 14-foot drop going down. We're very concerned about the fact that you build this brand new building for the community and it's sitting in a hole, or perceived to sit in a hole. So we've been working trying to keep that moved up a bit. I will say, because this is a work in progress, I actually have a different site plan from when I showed this to staff a week ago that starts to get your queue line a little bit more room. But just in general, we're a little unique here, as you well know, on Bel Air. We have 2 curb cuts, and those are really the only 2 median cuts we have. And we have frontage on only one street. It's very unusual for middle school to be able to face only one street, because we always want to make buses and parents go different directions. We do still need to get deliveries and bus unloading, even if not bus, but dumpsters and other things to the rear of the site, and a fire lane as well. So we will still have sort of these 2 separate zones. One's the more public parking and arrival zone, and one, I anticipate that's more teachers, because as you'll see in the plan, the academic is kind of the east side of the site. The football field is relocated to the far southern edge of the site now. We're trying, like everything, to not have retaining walls. Just the big wall. Hebron High School is the museum of retaining walls. You have walls everywhere just because that site drops so much. We're trying to get a little more natural grade through there, but it's a little challenging, I'll be honest, because we're working up against existing neighbor grades. We don't want to impose water on them as well. But just generally, our thinking is, based on the pedestrian traffic, if you've come across Bel Air in the morning when that school's loading, or in the afternoon, you know how many walkers you have that come directly across the street. So our goal would be to have, at first we had this as a parent drop-off. We actually are proposing now we split these into 2 different zones, and this would become the bus queue zone, and parents would actually enter here and have this entire length to traverse and queue back, separated by a colonnade or a kind of a park area down the middle. And I don't mean city park, I mean not paving, but actual grass and a sidewalk, so that those students that are coming across the street could actually come straight to the front door without crossing any drive aisles, so they don't further get into the parent queue. Apologize, I don't have that, but again, kind of a work in progress. We'd still have this zone back here, and I think, honestly, most teachers end up back here. And Dr. Rogers, to your commentary about park, that actually frees up a little bit more space up here. So if there were an interest from the city on this side as well, it'd be still up in that same zone.
Yeah, and Jonathan, thanks. That is that upper right-hand corner, or let's see, that would be northeast corner. That is something, that the community had sort of asked to have some type of park. There is no park for all those apartment complexes across the street, and so that is something that, if there's some green area in that upper right-hand corner, to have continued discussion with the city of Lewisville once again about a park that they would maintain in that area. So something we will certainly bring back to the board at a later date.
So while I don't have a phasing plan, as I mentioned, you're right up against the middle school. We'll bring you more detail, or we'll work with staff on more details. We get our construction managers up to speed and giving us estimates. That's kind of my first priority, and then their phasing becomes our second priority. So moving forward, this is the rough elements of the site plan. So Conrad and I did choose the same color for admin, so that's the easiest thing on the top and the center, just by accident, I guess. The red, or salmon, depending on how you read it, is the administration. Same secure vestibule format that you have at most of your other campuses, certainly your newer campuses, where you enter the first vestibule, you're not allowed into the second. Administration staff is kind of right up at the front entry. So really that's all your support office space.
Off to the far left of your image is all the athletic space, the 2 gyms by EdSpec, all the supporting athletic space, and direct routes both out of the gyms and out of these hallways back to those fields that you saw on the south. So it's the same orientation that you saw on the side. So the athletics stays on this end. It actually gives us a bit of an opportunity, and we need to talk about fencing, and we'll work through that, of beginning to secure kind of the back end of the site. For years, this has been your security department's part-time job, is enforcing what goes on back down behind Hedrick, because it's back down and behind. So really, I think there's a great opportunity here to now begin to start your territoriality a little bit further up, and especially if there's a play area at the front, I think it stops a lot of the need to move further in the site. But that's a detail we're working through in terms of where that would be. In this case, moving back, this is fine arts, so band, orchestra, choir. This is actually our storm shelter here, so a little bit different approach here. It's a single-story height, but most band, choir, orchestra areas are built out of block already for acoustical separation. We're up against the gym wall here, so it made sense to get our large-scale restrooms and really this purple area, with the exception of the stage. The performing arts backs up to the stage for the dining. Really, this becomes our storm shelter area. So a little bit different approach here, kind of wide open spaces, but again, there'll be some furnishings and things to work around. The green that you see is the dining space, kitchen and support space. At one time, there's a stand of trees on the far southeast corner of the site, and we thought it'd be great to kind of frame that view, and then we realized we were doing too many manipulations to see those trees, so we thought it'd be much simpler to kind of have kind of an outdoor learning space that's immediately adjacent to the dining and some of those learning spaces that's much more controlled. Also from a security standpoint, this is all the way around the back, so really you're not going to have people back there, but it does give you an ability to have all those classrooms look into that space. And then everything that you see in the blue bar is the what's called pure academic. What you see inside the tilted cube are the science classrooms. Science classrooms are always a little bit challenging at middle schools because they want so much casework that there's really not a lot of room left for windows. So in this case, it makes sense to bring those to the core for their labs, and then their classrooms are these pieces that are on these outer edges. These are hallway connector pieces between, so they still have the ability to get some viewability and light across. Special programs that you see in purple here, these are the art classrooms. So if you wanted to give art classrooms direct access to the exterior, they have view, but whether or not you'd want to have a door to have them out there as well. And so you start to create these 2 little kind of indoor-outdoor zones. Whether you use them or not, they're nice spaces for that. These triangles that you're seeing here aren't walled-off spaces. These are collaboration spaces. At middle school, you shift to a little bit more of oversight of a collaboration space. It's great to let students work together, but it's also a necessity to see what's going on out there. So you'll see they front academic classrooms across here and here. We're proposing that those are a 2-story volume, so that when you move upstairs, you'll see this a 2-story element here, so there's some connectivity there as well, and then 2 smaller broken out collaboration spaces here. And I think this is our life skills or home economics, essentially, specialty space. We have a principles of engineering lab that right now we've sited so that it actually is right over or immediately adjacent to the dining. There's some rooms in this building that we've chosen to have a little bit more visibility between the 2 spaces so that students can see what's going on in those spaces, and that's one of them, because that's one of the cooler programs to have at that middle school level. And then again, same elements of the science. A little bit different here, you'll see the red showing up again. So we have satellite administration offices embedded in the student areas as well. So that's kind of assistant principal zones. So you still have the command and control at the front door, but you have 2 smaller satellite areas within the building. Everything on this end of the building is that same height. There's no 2 stories. So really, once you go up this grand stair, the library is sitting at the top of that stair, and the classroom space is in this simple 2-story. You'll see, obviously, stairs in each corner of that as well. So plenty of egress. Where these small collaboration spaces are on the 2nd floor, if you noticed on the 2nd floor, on the 1st floor, they weren't there. Again, that gives you a little bit of a covered space outside so that those science rooms below could use that space outside as well. One of the things we've thought about and planned on to try and address this issue of grade is by bringing the library or media center. I'm going to start saying media center. It's only been 10 years. Bringing that media center up, trying to give Hedrick's new presence or kind of this beacon shape to that front door, because it's going to be a little bit of a challenge with the building sitting down even with the 2-story level. So that media center is all on that 2nd floor space and kind of has the prime view over the front door. It also faces due north, which is, if I'm going to put light in a library, that's the perfect light to put in the library. It's not direct light. Librarians love to take windows that we give them and to just cover them with blinds. If they're facing east and west, I completely agree.
this is really nice northern light, so you've got an opportunity there to make this special.
I didn't point out on the ground floor, I'm sorry. Immediately adjacent to the front door is kind of that community use room. I know there's been a lot of discussions about Hedrick and its importance in the community. So that space has been designed so that it can be used, and it can be closed off after hours to include these restrooms and this hallway and this entry point, and that's it. So if you were to use that space after hours, you have restrooms available, and the rest of the building is locked off. That does also start to address how you could deal with security. I know a lot of times we talk about glass internally, but there are other measures to stop someone from getting to those layers deeper in the building. This actually gives us an opportunity to kind of have a lockbox sort of approach at that front door as well. So I wanted to point that out because I know Dr. Rogers had asked me about that at the last presentation. So this is view from Bel Air, and this is again that sort of that green plaza. Obviously I'm going to need a sidewalk, or what I'll have is a green plaza with a path worn through it where several hundred kids walk through every day. And then in the revised site plan, we propose this would be the bus loading, and this is the athletics end of the building, and this would be the student drop-off circulating from the far east end of the site. And that library taking prominence is the one element that really draws you to that space. Instead of bringing a covered canopy out by projecting that media space over the front entry a little bit, that gives us that covered protection, still a little bit of separation between there and the curb, but it does give us room to cue students to get to the glass conversation that I know we're tabling. Right now, we've proposed that community room space has a glass facade. Everything else that you see on the building is pretty traditional window penetrations for a Lewisville Middle School. And the office area is, the administration is what's sitting here. They do have similar viewability as Conrad was talking about on Mill Street, so they can see people that are approaching, which is an important part of that. But the office windows themselves are really just solid, smaller kind of punch window openings, not trying to overdo the glass there. This, we just like to show things at night, so but it does give you an idea of where the glass portions would be. It illustrates a little better, and then moving a little bit further away. Library, as I said, this is a work in progress. We haven't even gotten around to rendering the books, so it's just an empty library. We just have to imagine all the books in the space. So I got this back from my designer. I said, we're missing something. But the idea is to give you the imagery. To the left is kind of the classrooming. Your libraries now, or media centers are designed for a student area for a equivalent of a classroom or two together, so you see that to the left, and then smaller little nooks, simple built-in nooks along the right side that we've seen very effective in especially middle school libraries where kids can grab a book, have a space to sit that's not as formalized as everywhere else. And then this would be kind of with your back to that glass, looking back toward that classroom learning area. And as we talked about in the other images, we're still in the process, but most library design we've been doing now with you guys has been everything's mobile, so all the shelving can be reconfigured as well. You may not even necessarily see the casters, but that's been an element we've been doing for quite a while. So that if you did a teacher in service and you wanted to get everybody together, you could push those books out of the way, or next year you could move shelves to a different location. But this gives you a feel for that. Stepping down into that dining space, remember I mentioned that kind of interior outdoor courtyard. This is facing south, kind of toward the back end of the site, so that's all gated off and fenced off. But you've got an opportunity there. That's that Principles of Engineering lab that I was talking about. Just looking quickly at finishes, like I said, we haven't gone through them here, but as Randy said, we've tried to be fairly neutral on most everything. So you'll see this is a lot of gray, very clean tones, gray, white. We're working through a blue that I don't know we have buy-in yet or not, so we'll see. But if you start to look at that bottom floor and you see that dark blue, the grand stair, I'm sorry, is to your left, and that would lead to the library space above there. But this would be, remember that tilted cube that you saw on plan, or that skewed cube. This is that lower floor collaboration space. And again, I'm doing the same thing Conrad did. I'm suggesting furniture. I don't know if that's the furniture for it, but it definitely would be mobile. So these are the larger ones. Remember the ones on the ground floor, a little bit larger space, 2-story volume. And then what we are doing to get more light into the core of that building is using clear story lighting around that entire upper square. So even when you're in the hallways, you're getting natural light in there. Used with the right lighting sensors, that could actually save you energy. I forget who asked about energy. But that can let you start to adjust to the natural daylight that's in there. And then you'll see typical classrooms kind of flanking that area. This is one of those second story collaboration spaces, a little bit smaller, and maybe they're more technology rich. I don't know that your grade levels break out as evenly in a middle school. You do tend to move kids up and down based on electives, so you can't say that an 8th grader is never going to be on the first floor. They
There probably are. But it may be that these collaboration zones upstairs are a little bit more technology rich versus the ones downstairs are more hands-on. We need to kind of work through that. But again, the possibility to look down into that courtyard space that I was talking about earlier on. And then nighttime walking away. I think that's what I have for, I'll go back to the plan because I anticipate there'll be questions about that.
Hey, Jonathan, Ms. Sells?
It's a great presentation. Thank you very much. And I think that the community is going to be excited to see all these plans. I love the collaboration spaces. I think that that's remarkable the way you angled that and created those out of there. I am concerned about that sports field in the back and just don't want it to turn into another soggy mess of some sort. Are we looking at making sure that we're proactive, not reactive, as far as French drains or anything that's allowable by the city that we can do that's going to make that, because there's no sense of putting that back there if it's not going to be usable by the students. And I mean, we expect great things out of these kiddos. And
This is the chance to correct what's kind of been a haphazard reassemblage of that field over the years. We have to do a lot of fairly significant grading back there, so the cost to fix that now is nominal compared to building it back kind of halfway like it was before. So yes, now we'll have to have a small detention. You guys have seen detention areas. We used to call them detention ponds. So we're really planning that now to be in this zone. We still have shot put and discus pads out there, but generally, I'm hoping I can get all that drainage to head this way. Obviously, everything's headed south, and get this. We're working through the grading. We're trying to keep this up on grade so we can discharge a lot of that water capture in the pond. That'll help a lot with what happens back there now. It's just there's a lot of ruts that have eroded. It's just the site has developed over time. There's nothing to drain it. This is our chance to go in and fix all of that.
right, and I like the collaboration of the outdoor spaces, or those outdoor spaces that could be
It would be great
used
if it could.
for that. And has there been any talk about barriers that would prevent somebody, and it's hard to see that on here, but
Right.
the last thing you want to do is have access for a driver to drive into students or whatever, so any kind of those,
Sure.
small,
Bollards.
short concrete barriers that you see that could be aesthetically placed, just for the protection of our students.
It's a little easier to isolate back here because this is that delivery zone you're talking about. That's really the thought here. One of the things that I've used in other locations that I think is fairly effective are even large cut stone benches. They double as benches, but they also would stop anything that's coming at them versus having a concrete bollard. That's what we call the pipes that keep it from hitting a dumpster enclosure. That feels a little more, doesn't feel as right for the site. So maybe it is just using stone as landscaping to kind of stop that if that's the concern. It's easy here. I would like to think this is a usable space too, but it's a little more exposed. So I don't know if that's as easy, but it's not as close to a drive aisle either. It's a little bit further back, but we can talk about that.
Mr. Miller?
So the westbound traffic coming out of the school, with the elementary school there, we have a lot of issues. There's always cones, everything like that. Anything special with that other than having a crossing guard or somebody directing traffic? Because remember down to the west, you got not only the Little Jackson, but you got
The academy.
to the east. Isn't the charter school there?
Yes, right by
coming
Lily
out?
Jackson. Liberty or.
So you're going to get a lot of traffic going back and forth there. Just curious how we might be.
The city's stance is the two median cuts that are there are the only two, which I would agree with. We wouldn't add a third because it'll only turn into more anarchy than it is now. I do think it'll help when we're not mixing elementary and middle, because no one's following the bus loading zone as it stands now. That kind of breaks down every morning. But I do think it's still going to take some combination of people actively intervening, and I'm pretty sure your crossing guards are not allowed to actually direct traffic like in most municipalities. If they can focus on getting those kids across at that center crossing, we're hoping, again, if we visibility, so I'd always prefer buses have that because they should be they should be the drivers who are paying more attention, theoretically. And then leaving the parents to this aisle, so if they did still want to go westbound, which is inadvisable on a normal morning, there's nothing we can do to stop them from taking that westbound turn because
That's the
median
turn I'm
cuts
worried
there.
about.
Yeah,
is-
I am too. But I do think our distribution, we need to look at it, but obviously our capacity is going to be designed for the high school than it is currently, but it's probably going to be fairly similar to what the two campuses add up to currently. So I don't know that our average trips per day is going to go up any, but this is a chance with everybody being gone from the campus for a year to kind of break old habits. And I think we now need to look at a little bit more kind of hands-on traffic control coming out of there.
Still, I
would disagree.
I see it as so much more safer than currently where there's cars parked on
Yes.
Bel Air.
That's a good point.
I mean,
This entire
that's
decel
to
lane
me
that's
the-
there now, I have no more use for.
Yeah.
I don't know if the city will let me get rid of it. I almost want to, but again, the building's moved back so far that unless a parent just wants to avoid the queue, what I'm worried about is they'll learn they can come eastbound and then pull into that old decel lane where the buses used to be and park and then walk students. And while it doesn't affect me here, I really would prefer to not have 10 outliers who are coming in and now walking across a traffic pattern.
If I may, remember, the school start times, when you think about when the charter school starts, Lily Jackson and Hedrick Elementary, and then their dismissal, that's where actually the bulk of our congestion and that getting backed up from the multiple campuses are those elementary hours, which will no longer be of concern.
Yeah.
So it should help a lot.
Okay, good. What are those two doing baseball diamond things down there in the lower right?
By our ed spec standard, we still have shot put and discus. They're not even markings on the field for me. It's a concrete pad. I just show them to make sure I have the right area to hurl.
Do we have that at our elementary schools?
Not at the elementary, just at the middle.
I'm sorry, middle schools.
Yes.
Okay.
All of them.
You've never noticed them because they're just a concrete pad, 8 by 8.
Got it. I assume in our collaboration spaces, we're gonna make sure we have, power outlets.
Yes.
Jason, remember that? Okay. So, just a little bit concerned about the glass in the front. Maybe, consider some options that we can talk about later, but, 4 foot high, not being glass, maybe something like that. Glass looks great, but I just want to be cautious about that. And then, last question, all of these new facilities are going to have restroom accommodations for various special needs and nurses, rooms and that type of thing.
So, and working with health services, we've developed the nurses area. They've had to look at it as far as developing the ed spec, as we spend a lot of time on that. And then, of course, as we develop, the special ed areas, they have the special restrooms and the lifts and things that we've also verified as part of that ed spec document.
I think too, what Mr. Miller's asking is for us to make sure there's separate restrooms every so often, like we've done at some campuses.
We do have them on there. They're not the little small spaces you see not colored in, are single hole restrooms that are kind of spaced throughout.
Any more questions, Mr. Miller?
Nope, thanks.
Ms. Lasan?
So I have one question that has to do a little bit more with the demolition of the elementary school. One time when I was there, I noticed that there's a really pretty old tile mosaic kind of outside by the playground. Is there any, this may be more of a district question, but are we gonna do something with that? Keep it, move it, something?
I don't know that we're gonna keep it, but certainly we're gonna make it available.
Okay, okay.
So if folks wanna, part of that wall, then we'll certainly make that available.
Okay.
That will be maybe part of the celebration that, we want to make sure that Dr. Coburn and my group, as far as the transition group, will discuss those kind of things.
Are the chickens gonna come live with you?
No.
Okay.
No, they could short term.
So I love the part, and I know exactly what you're talking about and why you put it in there with the grass, the walkway across. I know that that's so needed. special grass? Because I would think that would get pretty, it would look pretty gnarly after a while.
Right. I think in this, we've started to suggest some trees along the two edges. I think we'd have to be a little bit more literal about suggesting a path. Architects would love to do this kind of organic
Yes,
path,
a meandering
and then a
path.
seventh grader is going to
That's
walk
not-
straight across all that. So I might as well just give in and give them a path and say, just try and keep it between the lines right here. I think you could do that if you were pragmatic about it. Said if it's an 8-foot wide walk down the middle,
Yeah.
and then it's a nice
They
landscape
might do
buffer.
that,
I
but yeah.
think that would hold up much better than just letting it. I can't let it just be
Yeah.
lawn space. I tend to agree with you.
I mean, the
Especially
grass would be great, but I just.
after a month like this, though, where they're still coming to school after 3 inches of rain the night before, it may not be the most
Okay, that's it.
sustainable.
Ms. Prosnick? Yes, how many students did you build the building for?
Would it be 1,200?
Yes, so Ed Spec says 1,000.
1,000 students. And I'm assuming the number of science labs correlates to that students through our ed specs.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those outdoor spaces included in the budget?
Everything theoretically is within the budget. When we ask our construction manager to estimate, everything has to fit within the budget that they've given us to work with.
So, I mean, but my question is, those outdoor spaces are not necessarily part of the building,
They're
but
not
those
part of
ones
the
that you
SBAC.
you referred to outside the cafeteria, et cetera.
If you could make use of, they're going to be landscaped either way. It's just kind of taking it to the next step of whether you put, for instance, the cut stone benches that you could have out there. That's really where the kind of the change between it being landscaping and outdoor learning space. And if it's not in the budget, then it's going to be landscaping.
That's
what I would say.
correct. Yeah, and as Jonathan mentioned earlier, we're in a fairly early stage on this one to where, as cost estimates start to come in, obviously, we're not going to cut anything that's in the ed spec. It'll be areas like that
Right.
that are a little above and beyond, maybe a little extra. It's a nice space, it's there, and we're trying to think through it wisely rather than just having grass that you have to mow and weed eat around all those classrooms constantly. So, but yes, we will make sure all that fits within budget.
And then my next, how large is that community space?
I think it's about the size of 2 classrooms. So think of it about 1,500, 1,600 feet.
That is all. It's a beautiful building. I really like the library. I'm a big fan. So
It's kind of nice taking it upstairs.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
thank you very much.
Ms. Hassett? I agree with Ms. Hassan about the rain, or in the rain
Yeah.
with the piazza. I mean, you're gonna have those times where you're just gonna have a jillion children tracking. And I
Sure.
feel dearly for our custodians, so I think we should not do that to our custodians. So if we could have some kind of a pathway.
Sure.
Probably be better. And then for the upstairs classroom that looks onto the cafeteria, have we asked the teachers about any distractions? I mean, if my child, he's a little squirrel, so, I mean, if he was sitting in there, he might have difficulties focusing if he saw somebody or, I don't know, I'm just curious about kids possibly getting distracted when
Sure.
there's lots of movement and activity. I like the idea because the tie-in with the curriculum.
Right.
I'm just wondering about all that glass and kids who might have focus
Yeah,
issues.
and Ms. Hamrick has been a part of the discussions, but we'll ask that question.
How many squirrels? Yeah, how many squirrels do you have?
How many squirrels are in that class?
And then, I love the outdoor learning area, except, are we gonna have additional security issues after hours? That creates 2 cubby holes for people that might have nefarious intent after hours, that they could be secluded. I was just curious about that particular area.
I don't know that you have it any more so than you do at a lot of your current middle schools. There's always a back side. If I think of like Forestwood and Arbor Creek, there's that same loading zone kind of back of those very long buildings, but depends on the neighborhood, obviously. So,
I'm just a little curious.
Sure, and I don't know how much you want me to say here tonight about safety and security items, but, I mean, obviously, the good thing about a brand-new building is placement of cameras, placement of all site elements that would affect site safety. I mean, we're all designing that within this project, right? So it's not an afterthought or something, So we're definitely looking at all those things right now, as Jonathan mentioned, and glass is one of those issues as well, and what types of materials are available to us right now.
Could we make a very might have, that it's being watched. I mean, people might not look up, and I just want them to know.
Sure. Yeah, certainly, we can explore all options, and Mr.
We'll have
Garrett-
that engraved on the stone.
Never heard it described that way, but I like it when you say it like that.
So you're being watched.
Sounds very welcoming.
But I can tell
I
you,
just want to encourage
Sure,
activities.
sure. And I can tell you, we team with Mr. Garrett. He comes to our design reviews and everything, and he certainly always has an eye for anything security minded, and we try to take that into consideration. So.
Ms. Timish. Thank you so much again. I appreciate the thought that's gone into this, and I really appreciate even just, I know we're going to create something other than grass, but just continuing with the community and just partnering with them because they walk, that we're being intentional and thoughtful in that. And I also agree that libraries absolutely, as a bookworm myself, I can imagine that would be a fabulous space for them. Can you go back to just walk me through, like, in general, where the sixth graders would be, where the seventh graders would be? I know I saw the science space, but I'm trying to wrap my head around, like, generally English,
So there's very few what you'd call specialty classrooms. That most of them would be considered kind of core classroom space, and we still need to talk with Ms. Hamburg as we walk through all of that as well. So the specialty ones I'll point out, for instance, is special ed, so adaptive skills and things like that are in this zone because they have very specific needs with lifts, your art conference room, things like that. But when you get back into this hallway, for instance, right now, those all, if you could read those labels, which I can't,
right?
they all
Which is
just,
why I'm asking.
they all say class, 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 but because the goal is,
They're not assigned by grade.
and you just don't see, and maybe you do here, but most middle schools, we don't see 6 kind of clustered. Maybe math, maybe it's a departmental approach. And as we start to lay out casework, that may matter more to us as we decide, okay, the math teachers get this kind of set up. But most of the classrooms are treated pretty uniformly.
Correct, especially on the middle school level. If you look at the ed specs, elementary is very specific.
Correct.
Because there are different TEA requirements for the different ages. But yeah, middle school, if you look at the ed spec, it does kind of lump all your core classrooms into one section. And then you have science labs and all the extra, special spaces that we talked about earlier.
I was just trying to envision, because I know, when my kids were in middle school, sometimes it was hard because they were just running up and down 3 different flights of stairs trying to, so I was just making sure that we're intentional with the kids being able to get.
The general organization is the specialties kind of occupy the corners. So these are kind of multi-purpose, would have been a computer lab in the past, but they're kind of multi-function space. At this corner, and at this corner is that art or that home economics sort of space in the same way. So those anchor points become your specialties other than art, music, and athletics. So if you're moving, you're kind of moving to those 2 corners. Now where Spanish is, and there is a second language, it's a classroom somewhere in that bank that says class, and then science occupies that. So your sphere is really that kind of that zone on 2 floors. You're still going to be climbing stairs. I don't know how often, but you're still going to be climbing stairs.
And I'm assuming no lockers anywhere in this space.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, it's a beautiful building. I had a couple questions. So in some of our campuses, it seems like we try to separate out like the 6th grade and the 8th grade, like the 6th grade's on the main level, to kind of have some transition for those little 5th graders. Do we have that here? It looked like everybody was commingled together.
Well, and I think when I alluded to the upstairs collaboration space, that's kind of what I'm getting. That's my bias too. Not that I'm going to run the building in any way, but it does seem that maybe even treat those as kind of the upper grade level collaboration space. So maybe your core classrooms for 8, but in terms of a specific delineation of this is an 8th grade classroom, they're all the same size. They're generally the same accommodation. It's going to come down to staff of how they choose to use the space. Science kind of breaks out a little more evenly because we can say, because they're evenly split, so your earth science at 6th grade would probably be what you'd set those labs at on the ground floor. So you could have kind of that 6th grade feel. I would expect it to be on the ground floor, but in terms of what we're doing architecturally for that, there's not much delineation between the 2.
Yeah, and I think most middle schools, and Dr. Cover can jump in, but most middle schools do try to group classes by the team. They may have 2 6th grade teams, 2 7th grade teams, and so they try to group it that way if at all possible. That's not all of them, but most of them do that.
Especially 6th grade.
Yes, that's real important, I think. They're a little nervous coming over to middle school from elementary, so
It's a big
rough.
transition.
It's a hard transition, so, anyway. The other thing was, Ms. Prosek had kind of asked, but I'm on the capacity of community room. I really love that it is something they've been asking for. What is the capacity of people in the room? Like how many people could
It
you
depends
get?
on how you're gonna seat people in there. If it's rows like you have in the back of the room,
Yeah.
I still don't have a number for you, I'm just stalling for time.
Right.
That's obviously your most efficient versus kind of banquet style.
Right.
But, I mean, if we looked at it, it's probably about, Conrad, we think that's 1,600 feet. That's maybe a little bit more, kind of a quadrant of your room here. Is that, so I don't know what that would set up to be, kind of this back quarter. But we can lay that out, we can relay that to staff.
But we had a little bit of a discussion today, not with them, but just with our, Dr. Coburn, Dr. Rapp, myself, and we certainly expect the seating to be flexible, to be able to get 100, 150 people in there, somewhere.
And I would think in chairs and rows, that shouldn't be an
Yeah.
issue.
So like what is your vision of furniture in there? Or I mean, like transitional that you can move out? Or,
Yeah,
or just,
move to the corners, or,
Yeah.
some flexible tables, because, our purpose is, that while it's a community room, I mean, community could be school community,
Right.
could be, community across the street, could be training opportunities for citizens, in different groups. I mean, so we wanna leave it as flexible as possible.
yeah.
And so, some of the requests that were made, things like a kitchen and those types of things where, if we need to provide some cooking opportunities or training or whatever, and we can do that in a different place. That's called family consumer science,
Right.
that we can use that area. We don't want to lose the flexibility of the space.
Yeah, I just want it to be able to be used by our campus as well, and maybe some teacher training, or
Oh.
to be utilized, not just an empty classroom.
I promise you, Dr. Rapp
Yeah.
has already been thinking about that.
Okay, good, 'cause
It's not gonna sit empty.
good. It's a great
Yeah.
facility.
Bring it up every time.
The other thing was, I know it's there, but I guess I didn't see it, but the stage, is it right there in the cafeteria?
I didn't point that out,
I missed
thanks.
it.
So the purple that's kind of protruding into the green is the stage. So the image I showed you in the dining,
Yeah.
really your back was to the stage.
Okay.
I should have brought you the other one that looks the
Okay.
other way as well.
Okay. And
it's,
then,
it's designed to front back to these, I forget if I think this is choir that's here. We just had to pick a program, so theoretically you could come out of
but
the
you
back
access
environment
it
to
in the
back of
cafeteria,
stage.
right?
You can,
Or
you
from
can
the
come
choir.
from that
Oh,
room and treat it as
okay.
your green room, or you could access
Oh,
it from
that's
the cafeteria.
great.
We
Okay.
get that request a lot where if you
I
are
like
gonna have
that.
a program,
For
even if it's not
performance.
choir, they can stage kids in there and have them come out.
Yeah, that's wonderful. My other question is that the storm shelter space, I think you said capacity was 1,000. There's roughly, how many students over there now? 8 something?
No.
Or
Not even.
How many
Many?
students at Hedrick right now?
We've
About
got,
6 something, 650?
right at 700, not
Okay,
quite
so
700.
just say 700 for
Yeah.
friends. So can 700 students fit in that storm shelter space? It's pretty
Yeah,
small.
the 1,000 can fit in there.
You can?
It's
Okay.
larger than you think. This is
I guess
several
it's
thousand.
breaking up from the rooms and stuff
Remember,
makes
no
it.
It
personal
is.
space, no personal space.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
We're all just trying to survive. So
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
But that's a band hall, for instance, to give you an idea of scale.
I know it's really hard to tell scale.
It is,
but
because the
by
classrooms
hand,
are
it's a band
divided.
hall,
Yeah.
3,000 square feet just for a band hall. Plus all the other space, so it's-
Okay. Okay. Okay, are there any further questions?
I do have one question. Is the stage part of the
No,
storm shelter?
it's, that enclosure doesn't include the stage. It got too hard to close that stage up.
Get off the stage.
It's a very expensive storm shutter to close that stage front off with.
And I'm assuming that shelter would actually hold probably up to 1,200 people, because I'm including staff.
One would hope.
The way the code requires us to
I'd
calculate.
like to, I
is
mean, it's
that,
not just for
yes.
the kids.
Yes, it's everyone who could reasonably be assumed to be in the building at one time, and that doesn't assume you're having a PTA program. They don't go that far. But yes, we do have to calculate not just the occupancy of the classrooms, but all the staff supported. Kitchen,
I want to make sure there's room for me if I'm visiting.
Yes, yes, run to the fine arts area, you'll be fine.
Great question.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your presentation. We appreciate both of you being here tonight.
Well, there's one more.
There's one more.
There's more.
Yeah, there's more. Okay,
Career Center.
Career Center West. I like that enthusiasm already. I hope I can keep that up. So you guys know the site, and you know the buildings on the site. Harmon, West Side Aquatic, and this is our zone. Just to remind you, this is not your property, so really our development line is kind of off of there. The the first temptation was to continue using the parking lot that sits empty Monday through Thursday. But then every Friday when you drive by and you see the swim meet, we realized, we're not going to get away with that. So we are proposing additional parking. We're siting it to the south of the building. Really, the building has two entry points. As you know, some students drive, and then a lot of them arrive on bus during the day. So our thought is normal bus traffic around this building already moves along this back drive, and we would use this, circulate them back out, and have them stack along this edge. And really, our student traffic, and really it's teachers primarily in this parking lot are here during the day, which is good because on Saturdays now, when you do have swim meets, you actually have that overflow parking that you only need maybe 3 times a year when you have TISCA events in there. You'll see on the site plan another, let me get a little bit closer. Another what appears to be a driveway. Let me just address that. Because our large vocational programs are all facing kind of north in this, they all have need for a yard space for loading, unloading, doing dusty things. This is not anticipated to be a drive aisle as you would think of it in a normal day. It is gated and controlled at both ends. I'll need it for fire access, but fire department will have access to it. So during a normal day, this enclosure, you can see the beginning of the fence line going around here, coming back around and closing this off and kind of sealing that area off. So we don't anticipate students moving through there. That's staff moving vehicles or moving cattle trailers, whatever would be moving in that back. So what looks like a sea of concrete back there is really kind of their second door. You could call it outdoor learning here. This is where they go to do their outdoor welding. They do some indoor, they do some outdoor welding, and you have 4 vocational/trades programs, 5 that front into that space, and by grouping them all in that one zone, we're getting tremendous economy out of having that. Just to remind you of everybody that's going to be here, is by and large most of the programs from Dale Jackson, some programs that exist in bits and pieces of the place. Vocational agriculture is the one I'm thinking of. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, and then some programs that don't exist really at all, and I think of that as culinary. There are some small elements of culinary, but this is kind of the mother of all culinary programs. So it's not just Dale Jackson being picked up and moved. It's the elements of Dale Jackson and then others added onto that as well. Our thinking is, now that we have the 3 buildings on campus, really kind of thinking this is a campus approach. Yes, they're all 3 different uses, but a lot of that aesthetic that you'll see from the current campus, we're keeping with that building as well. It has its own identity, but the brick, the color, the tone of that campus, we're trying to keep that as uniform, so it looks like a much more cohesive campus, and you'll see that in the planning. The parking actually allows for a secondary entry on the south, and I'm sure we'll discuss security, but the administrative portion is here. But that multi-use room, so think of Career Center East, that multi-use room you guys have used for all sorts of work sessions. We have that here again, and as you well know, there are a lot of people who use that who don't have any other need to be anywhere else in that building, and so it's been oriented on the south, so that if you did have training in there, they could be using this parking. There's 2 secure entries to this, kind of 2 sides, so that could be used completely separately, including its own restrooms, and I'll show you that in the site plan. But I think most students, honestly, will be driving up on this bus drop, because if you've ever been at Career Center East in the middle of the day when the shift happens, when all those buses come and they're packed, that's now what this zone is, and so they pull up along there. So most of our constituents are coming in what you'd call the front door, the door to the west. Teachers and those who might be coming for sporadic use would probably be coming from the south. So a lot of programs to walk you through, but let me again reorient you. This is that administration cluster that I talked about. So we have 2 secure vestibules here. That multi-purpose room that I was talking about, you'll see restrooms immediately adjacent to it. So again, you'd have to after-hours access and be able to kind of keep them partitioned off in the building. This one's a little bit harder to close off because it's more about learning on display and programs being able to see, so you have more internal visibility. But that's been a big element of the design. So once you are within the secure area of the building, I'll run down this side first. One element we talked about at length is if you've been to Dale Jackson, most of those programs have small locker rooms, changing rooms where the kids get into gear at the beginning of the day. Pretty inefficient having a series of small ones because they're all undersized for the program. So one discussion early on was this is kind of a centralized locker changing area. So men's and women's, perfectly equitable, same size. So all those programs share this. You'll see the heavy trades, the way we like to think of it, is across the hall. So engineering, manufacturing, building trades, welding, auto collision. Now auto collision, welding, and engineering manufacturing, those all exist at Dale Jackson. And engineering manufacturing is really the woodworking. It's the easiest way to think of it. The stuff they do is pretty remarkable. So each of them has a large shop space. Again, working to that ed spec. Their shop spaces are the same size, different accommodations.
accommodations within each one. And then this interstitial space that you see is the support space for that. So for instance, for engineering manufacturing, there's a classroom that goes with that. So their classroom work is done in the actual classroom. That's a single story volume. The lab space is a taller volume, and I'll show you how that works out on the second floor. And then things like tool cribs, storage, wood cribs, where they store everything are these kind of spaces in between. So building trades, classroom kind of flanks in space. So everybody has their accommodation. We finally come to a moderated solution. We've been through a lot of user group meetings because, as you can imagine, each one of these trades is thinking of within their four walls. So I think we've gotten everybody aligned with the space that they have. Auto collision is only on this end because they actually move material through their space, so they needed to be the ability to flow through. Everybody has a coiling shop door to get to that yard I was referring to, but auto collision has a series of them and then one that moves out as well. And that's east side has a similar arrangement to that as well. On the other side of the hallway, as I mentioned, those are the locker rooms, and then the TV production, all the video production editing is completely across the hall. Acoustics has been a large concern with the campus, obviously. So this gallery space, as we're treating this in the middle, allows you to have not just visual but acoustical separation for the editing work that happens on the south side with the TV production and these larger heavy trades that are going on the northern side of the hallway. When you do walk in the front door, there's a restaurant element that's immediately to your left, which is really kind of the front of house for this culinary kitchen. So the culinary kitchen is really a teaching program. A small offshoot of that is that restaurant ability to serve. There's kind of different training lines within that. But as you can tell, that size of the culinary, it's a sizable culinary working kitchen. And then agricultural manufacturing, horticulture, and then there's a greenhouse across that driveway as well. So there's a separate standalone structure that supports both the floral program, really more the horticulture program. So really this is kind of the ag end of the building, if you think of it that way, but it's also a shop space that opens out. In this case, the storm structure here is actually, the storm shelter is actually 2 stories. So it's this zone, starting with those restrooms, this portion on 2 floors, just to mix things up. It actually makes sense because it's a little bit smaller spans. When you get into trying to span large spaces like this, the structure gets fairly expensive to be as heavy as far, so we try to keep those spans smaller. So a little bit more open space upstairs, but the structure here is, the shelter here is that portion. A lot of the early discussion of the design of this was that while Dale Jackson, for instance, the wood shop at Dale Jackson is great. He's got a great system of flow. As you've seen, they have kind of scrapbooks and display cases out in front of their space, and that's really all they have in terms of displaying student work. So a large part of the discussion with every person who came in, without leading them into it, was they wanted a way to be able to show what their kids are working on. So the organizing concept of the building is I had X amount of square feet to work with, so I couldn't get too generous. In fact, we squeezed it a bit over time. But this gallery space in between is intended to be that common space, whether it's what they're doing in the TV studio or what they're doing in engineering manufacturing. This zone we are calling gallery, and we hope that word goes with it because it's not just a glorified hallway. It's intended to be a space where they can move product out to the point even where we have a larger door that opens out of those shops where if it's, God bless them, if Auto Collision wants to roll a fully restored vehicle out there, they could do that. Don't know if they ever would, but you have the flexibility for each of those programs to put their space on display. So when it's upstairs, remember I said these shops are 2-story volumes. We really didn't want to have the roof jumping up just from an economy standpoint. So on that second floor, those interstitial spaces that have classroom below have some of our digital programs. Some of those folks that don't necessarily want daylight into their space, like graphic design and video game design. If you ever go to East, those guys have all their windows shut all the time. There's beautiful glass, they've closed it up. So we just said, it'd be simpler if you just didn't have that issue. And then we've got a small education upstairs. Health science kind of has a world of their own. Cosmetology has this entire area that you see in orange. The floral program is again part of the storm shelter portion. And then the crime and law enforcement. If you've ever been to East, they've got an odd little setup for their crime scene room. We've broken that into 4 other smaller modules that are really designed around how they use the program. So this space actually worked out well for them. They can make noise and throw blood on walls at that end of the building, and they're kind of in their own little world. So each program that you see is really a separate and distinct program, but the goal is with this gallery space and this shading that you see here is the walkways that connect all of that, that even on the second floor we have the volume projecting through, so no matter what's being done, that's on display. color in here, we've gone fairly minimal, almost black. Oh, hold on.
Wow.
So, really hard to read here, but you're seeing kind of that same brick aesthetic that you have on West Side and Harmon, the dark maroon brick and the pewter, more the dark gray brick, but still having an entry element that makes it very clear this is entry. This is a little bit cleaner view. So, again, to your left is not, the entry is a little bit more to your right. To your left is that restaurant element that I was talking about. So there is glass there, but a lot of that was about kind of the visibility and the aesthetic of that restaurant space. It's important that that's not overly sized. We've been through a lot of conversations about running a restaurant is not easy at all. And so really this is more of a proof kind of kitchen. So it's reasonably sized, but still needs to be right there because you really don't want the public getting any deeper in the building than right at there. So they still have to come in through a secure vestibule to get to that restaurant space, but we did want to have some viewability back out. So it's on display and it's actually something someone would choose to come to. Moving into that gallery space. So this is if you have just moved into the gallery space, and I apologize, I don't have one of my better images, but this, for instance, would be engineering manufacturing. You can see the connectivity. Right now we just have what looks like lawn furniture in there, but the goal would be that you've got program pieces that are moved out here, even so to the point that that woodworking area, engineering manufacturing, is on display. What's not showing up here is that each program, everyone is very keen to not just have three-dimensional display, but could they have a display? So we've got a very simple monitor system that sits by each door that they have access to, whether they want to put a PowerPoint on, that's scrolling through. The other element in here you'll see a lot of, so the gallery space is a lot of what we've been going to, and you saw it at Mill Street too, I think. A simple concrete floor, a polished concrete floor. We're doing kind of an accent area on it as well. So it's a little more of a refined industrial aesthetic. The space is mostly grays, black accents. The district loves stainless steel handrails because you never have to paint them, so that works well. But each program will have a color scheme that goes with their program, and I'm telling you this because I'm not showing you this. For instance, this glass here that you see here would be looking into, I forget which program that is, but our goal is that there's an accent wall within that space that is a color. There's a range of 11 colors, and so that space is known by that color space. Maybe reinforced in the glass that's out on the front, that there's a design to that glass that has just a very simple element of that color. So when you get to broadcast, green is the theme there. So it's not that it permeates the building, it's really about identifying each zone, and then the building itself is more of a neutral canvas, so that the color shows up in those programs, and more importantly, it shows up in whatever ends up in this gallery space as students start to kind of take ownership of it. If you've been to Eastside on a normal day, you will see kids everywhere, and they're not health science kids or this, they're actually health science and this working together. So the gallery is also designed for that. These teachers, especially at Eastside, have already started integrating their programs, and they were looking for a space where those kids could get together and work together, so that gallery becomes that as well. This is looking back to that front door. Again, we've taken clear story lighting kind of down the central spine of that gallery space as well, so you get natural daylight in that space. I always like to say you'd get enough light where you could turn the lights off, and I'd love to believe that people do that. You know, on a normal day, you really can't, but people don't tend to turn the lights off. It's just not in their nature, but you certainly could with the orientation and with the light that comes into that space. But it gives you a feel for the volume of those walkways on the second floor. And then this is the restaurant again, looking across the parking lot. That's the Harmon campus on the far west side. So the restaurant's 800 feet, almost 1,000 feet. Kind of, it's a good workable size, but nothing too out of control. That's been a conversation we've been having to figure out what's the right size for that. Again, it's still secured, but it may roll into your class discussion as well, because there was a purposeful decision here to put a lot of glass so that this was on display at the front of the building. And then again, we love things at night. So that's what I have for Career Center West. That was a whirlwind tour.
Great, thank you, Jonathan. Mr. Miller?
No, I'm good. That's great.
Allison?
Just a quick question. Did I hear, I thought I heard you say, Dr. Rogers, that there might be some space for animals, ag, at this one as well? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I think there's some space by the greenhouse for some temporary, it's not long-term. But if they wanted to bring an animal, you know, for a day or something, you know,
okay.
for their class, but it wouldn't be able to stay there long-term.
Not long-term like the ag, what?
No.
I'm not sure. I'm
not sure the city is keen on us flipping animals. That's why I didn't say anything about it, because I wouldn't quite
Oh,
start.
I see what you're, I got you. Okay.
We have talked about, like Dr. Rogers said, maybe adjacent to the greenhouse, kind of a corral area, that if you had larger animals.
Okay.
Because that is where your vet programs are, they're on that end of the building, so it makes some
Right.
sense.
Okay.
But still behind that fence, so we don't have pigs running down 30, 40.
I'm sure it wasn't the first time.
Pig running
That's
down
it.
34.
Ms. Prosnick?
I will say I did find it interesting that you put culinary right next to where we could potentially have some animals. I just
Yeah.
found that an interesting choice.
No idea how much conversation.
We
Well, and-
discussed that a lot.
Well, actually, Ms. Cox and Ms. Sheffield and I toured a place where they used the chickens, as I remember correctly, in their culinary department. We have no such plans, to my understanding.
Hedrick chicken.
That's Ms. Cox's idea. That is
Not
not
my
my idea. I do have a question about sound with the refined industrial concrete floor and children traipsing through.
Lightly prancing through.
Yes, especially in those combined spaces.
Sure. So, yes, and that concerns us as well. Acoustics has been a huge part of this one, not just separation, but absorption. Because separating the programs, the good thing about the plan is having those interstitial kind of classrooms in between, it does help buffer shop to shop.
Right.
And honestly, it sounds like a lot, really it's auto collision and building trades that cause the most noise. Welding keeps pretty much themselves. They set things on fire and they make smoke, but they don't make a lot of noise. So they're kind of, we actually use them as a buffer between other programs as well. Even isolating them from the second floor, we've done a little bit of acoustical. So what you see in this main hallway though, the ceiling deck that's up high, that's all acoustical deck. Everywhere we've had a chance to get a softer surface that isn't touchable. You don't want to put something soft down low where it can be destroyed. So even under these walkways, for instance, that's a perforated panel system also that has an acoustic pad in there as well. Because it concerns us too. When you have a sea of concrete, it's great for maintenance.
Right.
Never have to do anything to it. But yes, when 500 of them show up for what is like a shift change at those campuses, there's just suddenly 500 kids. It kind of peaks, and Eastside has that too. We've sat out and watched Eastside, and it goes up for a bit. But if we want to encourage them to work out here, we're trying to put as much sound dampening in that space up high as we can. So I share your concern, but I think we've gone a long way down that path.
And then
Yes, the acoustician has been merciless. I hired him, and he's just keeps making more recommendations. So we're tempering that with conventional wisdom and budget also.
blankets everywhere.
Yes.
My next question is, you talked about the different colors for every program. My question, is that going to be just with paint, or is that going to include colored hard surfaces as well?
It's 2 layers of that. Right now, it is paint as the accent wall in the space. One thing that we're still working through with these gentlemen who have not told me I could do it yet is whether we've looked at putting a pattern film on the glass that opens out into that space. It's just a simple pattern that it'd be the same pattern everywhere, but it would take that color theme for each program. Whether we do it on the whole thing or a portion of it, I'm letting my overlords tell me how far I can go with that. But beyond that, we're not talking tile, the things we don't change out very often. It's paint, and if it were to be on the glass, it'd either be a film to the glass, something that could be changed.
And if we were going to do film to the glass, would that be removable colored
Yes.
film? Okay, yeah, because I like, options. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
there are options with the glass, whether you could have it etched to the glass or have it applied. And after the conversation tonight, I think maybe the applied is the leaning from everything I've heard.
Edge won't work.
Okay, well, that's good. I came away with one answer. That's perfect. I'm halfway there. I
That's
still
all
am
I
going to
have.
prove to use it anyway, so I'm not
It's a
sure I
beautiful
can-
building, and I really can't wait to see the kids there, and I am more anxious than anything else to be able to get programs there so that we can offer them district-wide and not just at some campuses, and I'm just super excited. Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
I have a question on expansion. So if we wanted to expand, how would you expand with the current footprint? Knowing that we don't know what program we would want to add.
That's the million-dollar. We did have that conversation, and you never say never in school design because you always think there's possibility. One option, not the least expensive, but if we're moving up to the front of the property, we really don't end up with a room for a wing here, depending on the program. You know, if it were a solid standalone program, there's a possibility that you could move. We still have room to the property line to do something here and still have this be an interior kind of drive aisle. But more likely, either there's an extension that happens here, kind of a secondary branch to the admin would still be front and center. We've envisioned whether there's another wing that just goes due south and lines up at the front of that piece. And you could still have the majority of this, you know, if it were to be arranged here, you'd still have the majority of this parking. It'd just be removing parking and kind of have a longer front door portion to it. It's one option. The other is to even stand off further and bring another whole wing down here, but that's a lot of square footage. You need a lot to justify putting that much additional. But it's possible. We're constrained on the east and the north. Really, it's going to be to the south.
On the east because of the way that
We have a little bit more room. You can see where these 2 points probably converge. So we do have some room out here, but we're getting to a point where the circulation would be pretty constrained by the time you have students going all the way down to the end of it. It would just make more sense across the front. And if it's not a trades program, it'd be much easier kind of in that front portion.
only question.
Ms. Timish?
Thank you so much. Really excited. I do have a couple of questions regarding the restaurant with the access to that. What is the vision for the district? Who is going to be using the restaurant?
Yeah, I think the plan, and of course this is just a vision, is for us to have a working restaurant, you know, maybe every Friday, every other Friday, so that type of thing. And so, you know, we haven't worked out the exact details, but certainly it doesn't do us any good to have a restaurant if you don't ever have customers to serve. And so, you know, using our hospitality classes and the culinary classes together, and even some floral design classes, you know, sort of working all together.
Okay, so going back to the restaurant, but I see that you come in through secured interest. Is the restaurant, can you walk back through me, and I'm sorry if I missed it, is that enclosed so that if somebody comes into the restaurant, they then do not have access to the rest of the building?
We could work some of that. I need exiting out of there, and right now I have one that's purely exit only exterior that went into to that interior vestibule that I would propose not have hardware on it. So even if you're in the vestibule, you couldn't get in there. So if we had those two in place, then you couldn't get into anywhere else in the building. You would exit back out, and that's the idea right now. We do have a door back to the interior of the building right now if you wanted to have circulation come around and feed people in from there. But more realistically, if you did away with that door that you see right there, really your entry would be here and here. And so even if you use that after hours, that would be your same exit point. You couldn't get any further in the building.
Yeah, Ms. Timish, and we also had talked that, you know, you may want to host a meeting in the multi-purpose room, you know, like NTAASB, and yet then send them across the hall to the restaurant to get their food or whatever. So, I mean, it'd be a way that you could still connect and use that gallery area for some.
Now's the time to be intentional, because we do want to use a multi-use space in the restaurant, but if, once you've gained access into that building, and then you can get to any other part, then I think it then becomes, I feel like our hands are tied. My concern is how much, you know, if you do use NTAASB in the multi-use, and then you get to go to the restaurant, you really looks like you have access to the whole building. Am I looking at it wrong?
No, I think that's right.
Well, we have possibilities to start closing. I believe we have something here that closes this off. I don't actually, that sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't draw every line. But I believe we've got an ability to close this off. I know we do further back here, so we've tried to close especially this area off because of that reason. But the larger body of the building, I don't have a quilling door that's closing that off. These programs would be locked off individually, essentially.
That's after hours, and I'd be more concerned with if we have it every Friday during the day, people getting access during the day.
What I was actually assuming that we would, because in one of the other districts, they use that multi-use building during the day, and they don't have access to the rest of the building.
Oh, really?
So they use the restaurant, and that multi-use, so then they're in there throughout, but they can't get to the rest, the way of the design, they can't get to the rest of the building. So it's really nice, because they're in there, they're getting to see the space, using the multi-use and the restaurant, but then you've still got it completely locked down.
One of the tools that we have available is access control. So there's hardware that we can put on choose to have that door on the inside of the restaurant, and we can put hardware on there, a card reader, to where we can schedule it. It can be locked down after hours, or anybody with a badge that has permission can use it. So that's a tool that we have available. We've definitely been talking
But
through all
I'm not
these
talking,
with Matt
not
here.
to mention, it's during the day. That's
Right,
what I'm really
right.
excited about, because then you have our community that's seen all the wonderful things, and they're getting to see the space. You know, I think it just limits us, if we're designing this now, why don't we think about the use for it? And then with the restaurant also, and I'm not sure who would answer this, one of the questions I had was also allowing, access for our special needs students to also be able to collaborate in the restaurant business. Has this been designed with them in mind, or is that potential for them to be included in the restaurant?
Well, there's no doubt that the space is totally ADA appropriate. So, I mean, and we've talked about, you know, ways to incorporate different groups into the culinary space. So, and I think that was one of the groups that we talked about. So, you know, I don't think there's any problems with
No.
ADA-wise with.
No, and there's a special education space in the building
Yeah.
also, so that you actually can't have mainstream special education students on campus. It's just down the hallway from there.
So right there, because we, you know, I know that the culinary department was something we were really
Yeah.
excited about allowing them. I just want to make sure that that's not so far away that they'd be able to be included. And then with the horticulture and some of that, are there, in the vet lab, is any of that can have access to public space? If, I mean, our vet labs, are we gonna be grooming pets where people have to come in and drop off pets? Is that something we've looked at? And also buying flour? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure, because that's something we've seen at other career centers, and again, that goes to safety and security.
I don't think our plan for the vet lab is to groom pets. That's not.
But just, I'm just asking, like,
Yeah,
we're not gonna be dropping it off.
now there is, I think there is some, actual display, area, towards the, culinary arts and dining area that's for oral design.
Yes.
I mean, I think there is some space, you can point to it.
Yeah, we've got a cooler set up so that even on the ground floor, their stuff is displayed to kind of point you to their program. The idea with veterinaries we've talked about is not that you have public coming into that space. If anything, you're receiving animals, but it's not that a member of the public necessarily. So that's what this arrangement directly to the exterior that comes into that space, because we really didn't want those. Again, to your point about separation between the culinary that's right there, we've treated this with completely different mechanical systems and everything because of that concern. So we've tried to isolate that as much as possible. That was a conversation about veterinary, was how much public access would that be, and can we put them somewhere that would be encouraged? I think what we came back to is we're really not encouraging people to be dropping off animals here, but we still want a way to receive. So it'd really be more staff receiving directly through the exterior. That's why we were okay with them in that location, because we didn't want someone walking their dog to get back there.
So for the floral department, the horticulture department, where is their refrigerator? So can I come in, buy a meal, and then pick up a floral arrangement? Is that something that still not have access to the rest of the building?
That's the same zone. So if you see right here, you'll lightly see a line that would close off the rest of the building, and this display area and the horticulture piece would be here.
So yes, you could have that closed down. You wouldn't normally have it closed down during the day, to be honest with you. This is really more of an after hours, closing that hallway off, because these large restrooms would be open. So that's the idea of having it just past that, is you'd still have those restrooms available to you after hours. But during the normal day, you wouldn't have that closed down.
I was just wondering, because one of the career centers we saw, they have a flower of the month club, and
Oh, yeah.
it's really taken off. So they have a refrigerated section where people are regularly, it's really become a moneymaker for their program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make sure that there's a way for us to display it where people can purchase them.
Sure.
Okay.
We've been through that with their program, but we'll verify again.
Okay, and then with all the spaces, they all look neat and clean. Is there any thought to just making, for our architecture and engineering students, just having like some of the pipes were showing, or they were labeled, or different things like that? So it became the entire space became an educational
Right.
experience. I mean, including one of the bathrooms where you saw all the pipes and the kids could learn how all of that works. Is that any of the ideas that were incorporated into this?
primarily in the shops, you would have all of that. Probably not as much in the main gallery because there's really nothing up there. We've tried to keep everything out of there to keep it very straightforward and clean, and the mechanical systems are not in there. But certainly in the high bay shop areas. But the Career Center East, for instance, in the classrooms, that's all been left exposed. I think we have that same aesthetic in kind of these upper classroom spaces. I don't have to have a ceiling in there. Most of these are kind of, like I said, that refined kind of corporate feel, so we can go without and just have that exposed. Haven't done the labeling, but
It
could
was
do.
just interesting that they
Sure,
had the,
we've seen
they
it.
were saying with the.
In the main hallway.
Yeah, they did it
Actually,
clear, it was like a window.
Done that too, yeah. We haven't designed anything for that here, but it's a possibility.
But building trades could benefit from that.
Yeah, just, I mean, just what if, you know, you just, even going into the bathroom and seeing all the working parts, I think just using spaces you would normally just sheet rock off and. For learning and labeling it, so I just didn't know if that was something we were doing or considering doing, because I really liked that.
Hasn't been discussed, to be honest with you, but it's possible.
And, that's it.
Ms. Sells?
I think most of mine have been answered, except for the fact that with the floral on the second floor, can you explain to me, is there some other access that they're gonna have to the first floor other than the stairs?
Well, stair and elevator, everything's connected. There's, of course, an elevator.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there an elevator, right? Okay. Because with the greenhouse downstairs, and I would imagine this is the design area, correct? The floral
Yes,
design would take
yes,
place
kind
out
of
here.
design and arrangements
And
would
then, so
happen
they're gonna
upstairs.
have arrangements that they'll need to get downstairs
Right.
without disrupting them, so, okay. So
Yeah, you
then-
have a central elevator for that. I would hate to have them carting that up and down stairs only.
I think that was it. The dining room you said was 800 to 1,000?
It's a little
Do
larger
we
than that. I
know
think it's just
seating
under
yet,
1,000.
or I guess because the table and chairs have not been
Yeah, it
designed?
depends on the furnishings for the seating. We kind of had little four-top arrangements in there, which is pretty typical for a space like that, a four-seater versus a two or larger. I don't think you're having large birthday parties coming in, so the little four-top tables usually is what you'd lay out. But I couldn't tell you how many that lays out for. I can. I don't know that off the top of my head.
That was it,
Was it?
yeah.
Okay, and I just had a couple of questions. So it's a beautiful facility, but I'm not a big fan of the color coding. I'm going to be real honest. I think it's a beautiful building with the lighting, and it just reflects off. I mean, the building. I love how you've got etched in there like the manufacturing or whatever
Right.
it was you had in there. I think that looks really nice and clean. It reminds me of a college campus. So
Good.
I hope the district will reconsider the color coding. It's not an art
Sitting
center,
right
but.
there, so.
And then I did have a question about, I know this is kind of funny, but really not, but is there like a thick wall or something between the kitchen and the bed? Because I don't want to sit and eat a very nice meal and smell dogs and cats while I'm trying to eat my meal.
Yes,
I mean,
we've, again, ad nauseum conversation about this, but
Yeah.
internally, yes, even to the extent of completely separate mechanical systems. In buildings like this, a lot of times we would share some of the mechanical systems, but it's
Right.
completely partitioned, completely treated separately, so there's no mixing of air
Ventilation and all
or
that.
anything across.
Okay.
And again,
So
the
I'm
acquisition was very keen on that. That's a
sort of thinking
kitchen.
a
If you
cat
hear
or
a
a
dog
dog here in
barking,
my meal. And it's just,
There is a lot of kitchen between you and,
Yeah.
and anything that might be down here.
you'll hear, I mean, there'll be a lot of noise coming out of the culinary, but more concerning to us was environmental contamination. We didn't have
Okay.
airflow of any kind.
And then Ms. Timish asked a lot of questions about this, but the one question I was wondering is there restroom access that they would be able to enter in the restaurant that they would not be able to access the building?
No, we went through that, with staff, and at the time, we still have the restrooms here and here, but it's not specific to the,
Not specific within the
So they're
restroom
going to have to
space.
enter the building to be in the,
If they're gonna use the restroom, that's through that secure
I don't
vestibule to
like
get
that.
there.
I don't like that either.
yeah, the one we toured at with Prosnick and I, the restroom, they had a separate restroom where you're in the restaurant, you were able to use a restroom that was there, and I really would prefer that. I don't want them to have access to the building.
It's carving out space in there,
We'll look at that.
Yeah, so there's something to look at.
Sure.
And then the other thing was, again, I'm not a restaurant person, but I presume there's a grease trap and you have to have things with the vet clinic. Where's all that going to be in? Because sometimes that has an odor too that
All of that
it's not very
service goes
pleasant.
back in that yard, either out on this end of the building or back
the
toward
back
the yard.
part.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been through a lot of discussions. It wanted to be right there on the west side of the building,
Yeah.
except for everything you just mentioned. So it all has
Yeah,
to
it
be
has
back in
a
that yard
very
space.
nice smell to it.
Yeah, not appetizing between the
Yeah.
dogs and the grease trap. I get it.
Put it over there by Bakersfield. Just kidding. Okay. Those are all my questions, but great to sign. Is that all? Or?
Okay,
That's all for us.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Conrad, Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So, moving right along, Mr. Ball.
Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Dr. Rogers, Ms. Cox. Board members, this item is what I would call a housekeeping function. We do this every year. This is the budget amendment where we ask the board to reauthorize the purchase orders that were ordered in good faith before the end of the previous fiscal year but not delivered until the beginning of the current fiscal year. And so this is a detailed list of those items by function, and in the general fund it's $2.893 million, and in the food service fund it's almost $56,000. And as I said, these were previously authorized purchases that simply because of the crossover from one fiscal year to the other, they need to be reauthorized. If we didn't do this, it would be very difficult to conduct business the first couple of weeks of school. So we anticipate having this as an action item at the regular meeting next week, and certainly be happy to answer any questions the board may have on it at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Ms. Lasan? Ms. Prosnick?
I don't have any questions.
Ms. Hassett? Nope. Ms. Sells? Mr. Miller? Thank you, Mr. Ball. Moving right along. You're up for a while, Mr. Ball.
Okay, the next item is the guaranteed maximum price for the security vestibule renovations project. And we have attached the letter from Jackson Construction Company with the amount of $9,986,275. And that is the proposed guaranteed maximum price for redoing the security vestibules across the district. So certainly be happy to answer any questions the board might have on that, and we do anticipate this also being an action item next week.
Ms. Prosnick?
How many? I know that this is included in all of the new beautiful projects that we saw tonight, but how many are we talking for this $9 million?
That's a great question. I wish I had the actual count for you. It's basically every facility that we haven't already taken care of, either in the 20-year refresh or on these new buildings. So we're touching elementary, middle school, high school, and administrative buildings, and I can get that exact count to you.
So we're doing this at Del Jackson, for example.
Well, so Del Jackson was the one we had talked about possibly waiting until the renovation of that building, but yes, I mean, so there's some buildings that have circumstances such as Del Jackson, but for the most part, even the aquatic centers we've looked at this point. So,
And I'm not trying to belabor a point, but like, for example, we're not looking at doing the current College Street Elementary until after they.
Correct.
So this is for how long?
how long will it take to execute the
How
project?
long will it take to execute everything?
So currently, our contractors are showing until next August. So they've got a phasing plan in place. We're doing this work throughout the school year and next summer, and then we're done on August 1st.
And did we prioritize elementaries over middle?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
Our goal is to finish all the elementary schools first, as soon as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Hassett?
She stole mine.
Ms. Timish? Ms. Sells? Mr. Miller? Ms. Lasan?
Nope.
And I don't have neither. Mr. Ball, next item.
Okay, the next item is we're asking the board to assign architects to the to the storm damage, the June 18 storm damage. We're to the point now we have to specify which storm we're talking about.
Too many storms.
We did have a little hail event in June of 2018, and what this item is we're asking the board to allow us to go ahead and assign the architects to these projects, even though we don't yet know how much it's going to cost. We feel like because the adjusters are working on giving us prices, we need our own experts involved in it to review those reports that will be an outgrowth of the adjustment process, if you will. And so we also we've had a preliminary number given to us, but I don't think we have the final report yet on the last campus unless we just got it in the last couple of days. And so the recommendation is that we assign this work to Stantec and allow them to work with us then as we work with these adjusters. We did get a very rough estimate of what we think, or what the adjusters think the deductible may be. This will be the first experience we've had with a deductible that's based on a percentage of the insured values. And we're thinking that the deductible on this is going to be in the neighborhood of $815,000. And so it's a significant difference from those deductibles that we've experienced in the other situations. And so this, I think, what everyone, the agent, the adjuster, everyone concerned is telling us that that's kind of the new normal at least as it relates to windstorm coverage in this part of Texas. And so the recommendation will be on Monday night that if the board concurs with that tonight, that we would ask the board to assign this work to Stantec.
Ms. Hassett?
No questions.
If this is the new normal, have we talked to Stantec to see if they have helped do this? Is there more wanting them to help with this? Have they done this with any other school districts? Kind of help the district navigate this process? Are they going to be learning with us?
No, I don't think it's I don't think it's anything unusual in the construction business. It's not unlike most of us on our own homes. Our deductible is a percentage of the insured value of the home. So I don't think that that's something that, I guess when I was talking about the expertise, it's actually looking at the technical part of it. Do we concur that what the adjuster says is damaged is the extent of the damage? I don't think we need the architects to navigate the deductible issue as much as we do the technical questions about the roof damage.
And that's what they do with our homes. They help us.
Right.
So, all right, just curious to see if we can get any help with this.
All right, Ms. Sells? Ms. Lathon? Ms. Rossi?
We're going to pass the hat when this comes around? No.
We will be back with a budget amendment,
Yeah.
though, for that.
I just have a quick question. It's nothing against Stantec, but the comment in here was that it would balance, their experience and would balance out. They just announced 3 projects, so, they have a big workload, so.
And it's just coincidental that those 3 projects came tonight. I think if you look at the other projects that Huckabee has that we didn't talk about tonight, those would balance that out. And,
Okay, I just want to make sure.
yeah,
that we're
Huckabee's
not
got
overextending
they've got significant workload
firm.
as well. We're working both firms pretty well.
Okay. Next item, Mr. Vaughn.
Okay, this item has to do with a contract that was signed back in 2001, I believe, by the board at the time and by the superintendent. I don't think anybody that was involved in this thing in 2001 is still here. But it's a continuing contract, meaning it's good until either party cancels. Well, neither party has canceled, and so here we sit, 17 years later, still bound by this contract. And what this contract is this is a law firm that specializes in looking at taxable values of school districts and doing what's called a property value audit. And the way this works is our school funding is based on the comptroller's certified property values. And there's a 4-year statute of limitations at the state level on that, so that if we can every year look at those values, and if we can get those values lowered, then we get more state funding for that particular year. And so what these continuing contracts would do is look at that every year, and if there is an opportunity to benefit from that, that we would move forward with the audit, and the fees are based on a contingent fee arrangement where the law firm would get a percentage of the net benefit to the district, either in terms of additional state funding, or now in the future it will be a reduction in our recapture payment. And so we do believe that this is a needed service, and really we do need it on an ongoing basis. It's probably not best practice to just have an indefinite contract. My recommendation would be that in the future that the contract have some sort of a finite expiration date, and so that it could be reevaluated periodically. So all of that's the background. Because we already are bound by this year by this continuing contract, it's our recommendation that we authorize this firm to move forward, taking a look at our 2015 property values, because that is the last year for which the statute has not already expired, the statute of limitations. And if they find that it could be in our benefit, then we would owe them a percentage of, and those percentages are stated in the item here. It's 7.5% of the net benefit to us. And then at the same time, because this is a continuing contract, that we would also provide them notice that the board desires to terminate the contract in July when the notice is required. And then along with that, we would have a process, a competitive process, a procurement process, if you will, to select a firm to do this for the next 3 to 4 years, as we do typically with these type arrangements. And this firm could very well be a participant in that process, and could be the firm recommended. Who knows? But certainly we don't think that just having an ongoing perpetual contract is in the best interest of the district. So that's kind of a long, drawn-out story about this item, but that's what this item is all about. And if we wait to provide the notice next July, then we'll lose the opportunity to take a look at 2015 because the statute of limitations will have expired.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Ms. Timish?
Okay, thank you. So we currently have a relationship. I mean, I'm just wondering, we're gonna pay them 7.5, but I mean, that's a really long time. Do we know if, is this gonna be worth the work that they're doing? Do we know their reputation?
We do. I have worked with this firm in a couple of other districts. They've been around a long time. Obviously, they've been around since 2001. This is what they do. It's one of the things that they do. They have people that are pretty much dedicated to this. So I don't have any concern at all about the qualifications of the firm. And the fee, the 7.5% fee, I think is pretty much the market rate for this type of service. In fact, I've had some very limited discussions with another competitor of theirs, and that's the rate that they propose as well. So I have no reservations about this firm. I have worked with them in 2 other districts, I believe. And so they are competent to do this work, and I think the fee is also in line with what the market is for this type of service.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate exactly your feedback because I just want to make sure if they're going to be doing this work that they would do a good job for us, if this is our only option. And then remind me again, when would we give them notice?
It's the contract provides, and I've highlighted it in the exhibit, that the contract provides that the notice has to be provided to them by July 1. And it's a little bit vague about when the termination would actually be effective, but I think in the spirit of this is that it would be for the tax year based on the tax calendar, I think is the way it was intended. And I have talked to these folks, and to their credit, I think if there's one area where they could have done a better job, it was on communication, because they tell us they have been looking at our values over these time periods and weren't communicating because they weren't finding anything that they felt like would warrant pursuing an audit. So I do believe they're a good firm and they're competent to do this work.
Right, and I see that highlighted part of when we have to, but when would you like to tell them?
Oh, I've already told them what our intentions are, in the interest of just being transparent with them. I mean, I wanted them to know we're not unhappy with them. It's just that we feel like best practice is we need to have a contract with a stated term, and there's not a person on this board that was involved in selecting them initially, nor in the administration. And so, and I've told the partner in charge of this that we just feel like the board would feel more comfortable having their own process of selecting a firm. And it very well could be this firm that the board selects at the end of the process, but it might not be either.
And Ms. Timish, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ball, but I mean, there is a consent item next week asking your permission to terminate.
Yes, thank you.
This contract. Have them do the 2015 audit and then a separate item to terminate the contract.
Any questions? Ms. Sells?
When will we have the 2015 audit back? How long will it take them?
I haven't asked that question, Ms. Sells. I don't think it will take long. I think a lot of this is done based on statistical studies that they do, looking at our properties. But certainly that's a question we need to ask. And the way it works is, if they deem that there is additional funding that could be achieved, and in this case it would be additional funding because we were not paying recapture in that year. We would recalculate the state funding, and based on the recertified values that would be provided to the comptroller, and then the TEA would pay us more for that. It'd be the 15-16 year, I believe, is the way that would work.
And we would receive.
We'd actually get cash from TEA.
Once that's done.
Yes.
I'd really like to know the results of that. And then also, is there any way, it'd be my desire to make part of their contract or part of a new contract that anytime that audit is done and there is a finding either in our favor or not, that we're given notice of that.
Right. Absolutely.
That would just be my desire.
Certainly. Absolutely.
Mr. Miller?
They don't give us notice today because they haven't done it for 10 years. Is that why?
I don't know that it's been that long, Mr. Miller, but I know they've not done it since I've been here, and I'm in my 4th year, so it's been a while. But I don't know that it's been a decade.
So this is just really you're kind of cleaning it up, right? So
yes.
We have to terminate to get out, but we may go out to bid, and they may, based on your experience and other references, they may be the company we sign a longer-term agreement with.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Lasan?
No questions. Mr. President, can I ask what brought this to our attention?
They communicated with us, and also one of their competitors communicated with us and said, hey, we'd like to have an opportunity to take a look at this work, and so that caused us to look into what is our relationship with this firm.
I'm just wondering how many, if we'll look and see if we have any of these continuous contracts with anybody else. I mean, I don't know how we audit that, but
Yeah.
I mean, because I guess part of it is based on their self-reporting of their lack of communication with us, but I would assume that we knew that this kind of service was available to us, and why, I'm trying to understand if we have a system of understanding how many contracts that are like this that we have, not just with this law firm, but with anybody.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ms. Prosnick, and something we'll look at. There's no doubt most people are looking for us to give them, some type of payment, and so we would think that they'd probably ask for that more than every four or 5 years, but we'll certainly check on that. It's a good question.
Ms. Hassett?
I just had a question about the semantics of how it would actually work. So if they did increase the values, and
No, they're looking to decrease the values.
and to receive more state funding, how would that affect 2016-17's? Would that just affect just the 1 year that they audited, or would that affect, was that a ripple effect?
It typically just affects the 1 year they're auditing, but each year stands on its own. So whatever they find in 1 year, they'd go to the next year and take a look at it and see does it warrant. So each year you'd want to do that, and they say they've done that, that they've looked at them, and really I have no reason to doubt what they're saying, because all of the incentive is for them to come forward and do the audit, because they don't get paid if they don't do it. So I don't have any reason to doubt what they're saying, that they've looked at it, and that's also consistent with my past experience, is that every year you don't necessarily realize any savings from this type process, but you want somebody looking at it so that if there are some savings opportunities, you take advantage of them, and they only get paid if they find some savings.
Another question.
Okay, so I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. I know Dr. Rogers and I talked about it, and I mean, this has been 18 years, and so my question is a lot of things come back to the board for, renewal of the contract. Why has this never come back to the board to continue a contract? And what have they been doing the past 18 years? I mean, have we been paying them?
We only paid them in the past if they did an audit that resulted in more state funding to us.
That we would have had to request.
Well, the relationship is built on the fact that because it's all about the reason I think it's a contingent fee is because that puts the incentive in their court, if you will, to take a look at it. Because if they don't submit any audits that result in more state funding to districts, they don't get paid. And so what they tell me is they've been looking at our values and come to the conclusion that there were no savings, and so they weren't filing an audit request, but the contract was a continuing contract. And so if there's a year that they feel like there is some value to be gleaned from this process, then they would recommend the audit. There's no cost to the district for doing the audit, and that's why they don't recommend it unless there's savings. And the incentive is for them to try to get a savings. So
this is something they reach out to the district to.
Well, there should be a two-way communication, I think, in that every year we should be looking at our values to see are there any opportunities for more funding here.
Right.
And they say they've been doing that, and that there are none, and that now we have an opportunity to look at 2015.
And then we'll change the contract.
Right.
So my question, reading, I'm just roughly glancing at this, it says must give notice by July 1st. Well, there's no year on here, and this was from 2001, so to me it's before July 1st. Why can't we terminate it now?
because I think the intent was that if we don't terminate by July 1st, then they have the opportunity to work the next year. So I think what we would do is we'd do.
Of that
We'll
calendar
terminate.
year.
Yeah, we'll
I don't
terminate.
think it's the calendar year. I think it's the tax calendar, which
Okay.
starts like about now and goes through August 31 or September 30th, actually. So I think because of that, I mean, certainly we could terminate the contract right now, but I think a pretty good case could be built by them to say, if you do the 2015 audit, it needs to be through us. Now, whether they'd choose to do that or not, I don't know. But I think just operating in good faith, we have a contract that the board signed in 2001, and so it's been my thinking that we need to honor the contract that the district entered into in good faith, and I do think these are competent folks, and so I think that's that's dealing with them in good faith, I believe, to let them do the 2015 work and then notify them that, and that could be contemporaneous. We could say, go to work on 2015, and oh, by the way, it's our intent to terminate. I've already had that conversation verbally with the partners, so they would certainly not be surprised by that.
Okay, I just don't want to lose any funds. Ms. Prosnick?
Would they be willing to provide us with some kind of report for the last 17 years saying that they looked at our evaluations and that they determined that there were no savings? Could we get for the work that they say they've done, can we get some kind of a letter of something from them saying that they actually looked at that?
We certainly can request that from them. Now, I wouldn't say that all of those years. There may be some of those years that we actually got money. It's just in the recent past that we haven't heard much from them.
Ms. Hassett?
Can you also ask them any districts in our area if they have actually received money within the same time frame? So if we haven't, have other districts involved.
So are we? Yes, we can ask those questions. I guess the question I would have would be, would the board want that to be a part of a procurement process in a new deal, or as a part of this deal? Because as I understand it, we're bound by this contract now, and certainly we could get information from them.
I think my concern is exactly what you expressed earlier, is the lack of communication, and
Right.
a little disconcerted that there was a lack of communication
Right.
for such a long period of time. And so, in a show of good faith, can you provide any information that would
Sure.
give us more information?
Sure.
Do we, if I could just ask on that, I mean, is it, I can see the benefit of that. They're under no compulsion to do that. We're in a public meeting, we're talking about, we're gonna terminate their contract, so they can try and make money off of 15, 16. In any case, there's an agenda item to terminate the contract. Any superfluous work there's no motivation for him to do that. I can see what Christy's saying, because one would say, well, were there other districts that got a savings? But it's a statement of, it's an implied, maybe they didn't do something right. So the question here is, it seems to me, what you're asking, somehow there was something that created a process for this to come forward. They're going to look at 1 year, we're going to terminate the contract, there's some competitive options, we're going to go out to bid. What we should hope for here is that they can find some money from 15, 16 for us, or whatever year we're talking about, right? 15. And
Right.
it seemed to me that a firm that has a contingency contract like this is highly motivated to find money every year.
Absolutely.
So I would just, you know, in the spirit of the way we talked in our last work session of being a partner and giving our bond back, you know, that 5%, 10%, right? I think we've got to be careful to infer they've done something wrong. But I fully agree, just like we talked about with the tax collection, that we need a relationship that's such that there's reciprocal communication, that they're communicating with us, and it could be that, hey, we did an audit, and here's what we found, and here's the numbers, and there's no money to be gained. That's communication, and it's one paragraph. But I think what you're saying, Mike, is you agree with that. You agree with all that. That's why we're cleaning this up, and we're going to look at our next step.
Right. I certainly don't want to come across as implying that this firm has done anything wrong. I think they're a good firm. They're reputable. And it's not every year that a district is going to go through such a process and receive some additional state funding. And so when that is the case, you submit the audit, you get the additional state funding, and these guys get 7.5% of that. In a year where they take a look at it and they don't believe there are savings, you don't do anything, and they don't make any money. So the fact that that there hasn't been savings in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years certainly should not be construed to mean that this firm has not done what they should have done. That's not the message we want to send about this firm.
Right. So it seems like there are 3 things. Jenny brought up a great point. Are there any other contracts that we can we inventory our contracts to see if there's anything else like this where, if at a minimum, we could have some improved communication? And I go back to kind of like the tax collection, right? I mean, it's just good to have that communication. And while some of us were involved in those decisions, I think they were even before you, Dr. Rogers, I can't remember, but it's good to have that inventory. Let's get this 15-16 thing done. We've already said very publicly we're going to terminate the contract, so let's let them, get us some money if they can, and then I assume that your procurement department is going to go out to bid or whatever under the government code to look at, should we have a more beneficial relationship with another firm in the future?
Well, it's certainly my thinking that we need this kind of relationship with some firm on a clearly defined multiple year term, probably 3 to 4 years would be my thinking, and so that everybody concerned knows this contract expires on X date, and the board certainly should be the body that appoints that firm, and we should have a request for qualifications process that would ask the questions that the board has verbalized tonight, and maybe others, and looks at other districts where they do this work, and all those kind of things that we would do in that sort of process. And this is no surprise to this firm. I've told them on the phone that this is what we'd be recommending. So, and they understand that. They do that. This has been a long-standing deal that just needs to be cleaned up as you've characterized it. But using the term "cleaning it up" shouldn't imply that anybody's done anything wrong here.
Poor term. Maybe I used poor words there, but
I just repeated them, so I'm in it with you.
Reconciliation. I don't know. Jeff, throw some in for me, will you?
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Ball. Mr. Colbeck, we're going to wrap up the night.
All right, thank you. It's been a while since I brought something forward. We're ready to move forward with another bond project. This is in regards to the data center storage refresh. I brought an information item forward in August. Basically what this is it's the storage systems that we would use for our active storage, as well as what we use to replicate the active storage in case something happened to the live storage, and also the backup itself. The systems that we have running on there are very, very critical to the district. We're kind of to a point where that stuff is aging out. The support on that's going to be running out. Also, we're actually having a hard time managing the backups right now, the way it's going based upon the size and the capacity. So we do need to upgrade that. So what we ended up doing is we worked with the procurement department in our request for quote for specific hardware. What we're really looking to do is bring an action item forward at the next meeting. And it's essentially what we're looking to do is bring a recommendation forward for the products and services we need to do that upgrade. And what we're trying to do is there's a couple things kind of in flux. In the discussion item, it talks about the contract that is currently in place. If you notice, it's going to expire November 10th. So the vendor that provided the quotes as well as the contracts are being negotiated right now. So we are expecting those to be renewed, but our hope is that process happens, that we can bring this action item forward for approval at the next meeting, and then ultimately we're targeting Christmas break to actually do that storage replacement, and that will require some outages because we're going to basically have to pull all that equipment out, put new equipment back in. So our intent is to try to get that project done during Christmas break. This is a project that was included in the 2017 bond budget. And also, I just want to point out a couple things. The storage in this case, it's not the additional storage for cameras. So if we get to that point where we need that additional storage, that would come through as kind of that third phase of the camera project. And also, this does not provide the hardware that we would be putting in once the Josie Lane Elementary School is built. That's going to be our disaster recovery location. So this is basically to replace what we currently have here in our data center and also at LHS. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd certainly try to answer.
Ms.
You're welcome.
Sells? Ms. Sells? Mr. Miller?
I think it looks good. I haven't decided yet, but I don't like the fact that it's on consent. It's a $2 million expenditure, but I'll wait till Monday night on that, I guess. It's just a big expenditure, and I think a 90-second explanation to the public is.
I think it's an act. I think it is an action. It's going to be an action item.
It's an action item.
I thought it was. I just looked at board book and it was.
We'll double check.
Okay,
We can
we
move
can
it to
double check.
action.
But
Because in the item for tonight, in board book, the vendor's not named. In board book, it's named.
That's deliberate, Mr. Miller, that we did not name,
Right.
we have not publicly named the
That's
vendor.
why I think I know it's in consent.
Yeah. And
Maybe it was just inadvertent. I don't know.
as Mr. Colbeck said, the cooperative contract expires 2 days before the board meeting, and our hope is that they will have a new contract negotiated by then. But if not, in order to meet the timeline that Mr. Colbeck just indicated, we're asking the board next week to give us the authority at the price that you'll see Monday night with a qualified, assuming that they do have a contract, which as of right now we don't know. So that's what we'll be asking the board for Monday night, just to keep this on schedule.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Ms. Lazan?
I like the part in there where it talks about you save $500,000 our purchasing department did. Is that correct?
yes.
$557,000.
Yep.
I just want to give kudos to that. Otherwise, I think you're
Pausing.
I just want some clarification.
Okay.
Whether we have a contract or we don't have a contract, it'll be on the agenda?
So the current contract for those products and services will
Right,
expire
expires,
by
right.
the 10th. So what's going to be in the action item is for the board to take action on the amount and basically the assumption that there is going to be a contract in place. Once that contract is in place, there's a purchasing mechanism. We will then purchase the equipment for the amount within the budget that's specified in that action item.
And we can do that without a contract?
No.
Okay.
What the action item states, or consent item, whichever it is.
It's action. I'm sorry.
It is that the DIR contract, I believe it is, the cooperative contract, let's call it, expires on November 10th.
Right.
So everyone concerned tells us they're working toward signing another contract. They may or may not have that done and publicized by the November 12th board meeting. The vendor, the unnamed vendor, has already agreed to hold their pricing at the amount that's stated in the action item for next week's meeting. The only thing that's unknown at this point is the contract number. And so normally when we come to the board with a cooperative purchasing recommendation, we say DIR contract number so-and-so. We just don't know the contract number, and we may not know it next Monday, but so that we don't have to wait a month so that Mr. Colbeck can get the work started, we're asking the board for authority to, once the contract is known, because that is a compliance issue, that we do have to have a contract with a cooperative for that kind of money. And that as soon as that contract is in place, that the board would give us the authority to make that purchase at X dollars that will be stated and is stated in that action item.
Okay, that's where I got confused, 'cause I know we have to have one of those. Is the winter break enough time to get
Yeah,
this done?
I
If
believe
you have the lead time
Yeah,
of,
assuming that the contract doesn't get delayed and the shipping comes as we expect. That's sometimes a variable, certainly during the holidays, but this is something that we expect to be in the distribution channel and something we can get fairly quickly.
okay, that's all. Ms. Hassett?
No questions.
Ms. Tindall? And my questions have been answered, so I think
Thank you.
that's it. Does anyone have anything else? There's no further business. This meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:51.
Dr. Coburn?